this world, thank you for joining us. Hi, Cat Floxworthy here, and we are doing a collab this time. We got a big one this time.
Hmm.
We are doing we're now going to be doing the launch of Crew 3. Crew 2 arrived. A couple days ago, splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico, and now Crew 3 is going out to replace them. They had to scrub this launch several times owing to either weather or crew member health. So everything seems to be in good order now. Now that we actually have a good good launch weather today. So meanwhile, before we go on, let's introduce ourselves to our to the others to the other viewers audience. My name is Cat Floxworthy. I'm a nerdy trans variety cat girl VTuber, and I stream primarily not just the usual video game fare, but I also stream technology and spaceflight streams.
Hello, everyone. I am Puzzle Pulsar. I am a space bunny VTuber who resides on the moon, and I do a variety of games, including tabletop like Dungeons and Dragons.
And he's also one of my usual partners in crime when we do
Mm-hmm.
spaceflight stuff. I'm going to scooch myself down just a smidge. Okay, go ahead next.
Hello. I'm Thero. I'm a space knight YouTuber, more of a fantasy theme. Um, and I don't stream as much as I should, but just trying to get back into it.
Well, welcome to the party.
Yep. Thank you.
Greetings, you all. I am Calideus. It's fine if you just want to call me Cal, as there's already a Callie out there. But I got here first, I swear. I am a completely normal man. There is nothing unusual about me. I am just here to watch and observe and never afflict upon anything that happens. Although I will provide color commentary.
All
And
right.
if that affects the way things work, then so be it.
And Speeder?
Okay. Hello, my name is Speeders. I actually got two names, Saipul or Speeders. You can call me Saipul or Speeders. I usually stream, not usually. I'm actually a new VTuber here. I stream
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube and Twitch, usually gaming, and I do love science and tech. So my content is maybe gaming and talking, free talk, and science too. I'm from
Cool.
Indonesia, by the way. So,
Yeah.
but I talk English too.
Hmm?
That's
Cool.
it, I
Glad to
guess.
have you aboard. I'm so glad to have you aboard because when you and I were talking the other night, you said that Indonesian live TV doesn't really cover a lot of space flight.
Yes, that is very true. So in Indonesia, the news is just like, yeah, NASA doing this, the SpaceX doing this, uh, but we never cover news that like this. So this is actually my first time. Uh, maybe other Indonesia people there is also love watching this kind of news, but for me this is my first time. So I'm
Oh,
glad I'm having collab with you guys.
well, welcome aboard. Glad to have you here,
Thank
and hopefully
you.
hopefully this will bring some of the some live content, especially to the VTuber fan base in at large over in Indonesia and in the
Mhm.
general area because that whole area, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, and of course Japan, that goes without saying.
Mhm.
That's a pretty big hotbed of VTubing. So anyway, just to bring everybody up to date, they've already suited up. They how's it going? Anyways, they've suited up. They've ridden the Teslas over to Launch Complex 39A. They've gone up the elevator and they've went in there and ingressed into the vehicle. So let's go ahead and head over there right now. There they are. All four crew members are now in place.
And SpaceX Endurance, we are ready for seat rotation.
And now they're doing a lot of communications checks just to make sure everything's working.
Copy, Dragon.
Now,
We will report when initiating.
If I'm correct, Endurance, that's the newest capsule, right?
That is correct.
Yep.
And they named it after what everybody's been doing over the last probably 20 months, which is of course enduring the 19 to 20 months, which of course is enduring the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as other slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, as it were. Probably not. I'm probably misusing that, but you get the point.
It's a little ironic for Endurance because, you know, Earth's got problems. We're just going to leave.
Yeah, right.
See,
especially with Starship on the horizon.
Thanks, Jesse. As we said earlier, the team
That's what I really like about like these capsule names. You know, I would have expected, honestly, like Dragon take up, you know, the nomenclature names of like dragons, Bahamut, Tiamat, Rayquaza. But here you got like, you know, actual words that, you know, mean something. Resilience, endeavor.
Well, you kind of want to
and,
maintain
you know.
some slight sense of
Oh,
humility. but
definitely. Mhm.
Also, you want to say you don't want to use up all the good names before, you know, we're making starliners and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
of course. And meanwhile, they're in the process. And to answer a question on my chat, Lazy Boy T was asking what's happening. They're in the process of getting ready to launch Crew Dragon Endurance, taking the Crew-3 mission up to the International Space Station for a 6-month stay.
Only 6 months? Usually it's like 2 years.
No, it's not usually 2 years. About 6 months is about the usual time for them.
You know,
Martin
it's-
Van de Hey is going to be up there for a year.
Ah,
It's kind of rough on your
Yeah, he
body
went
to
up
stay up
on-
any longer.
yeah.
He went up on MS-18. He'll probably be coming down on MS-20 or one of the other Dragon vehicles that might go up in the future.
I read an article on an experiment to sort of circumvent the effects of low gravity environments over long periods of time, but it was basically it looked like a seasickness machine.
Wow.
It's supposed to trick your body into
That's right.
into acclimating for gravity when you're in 0G just by spinning.
Yeah, that's I think Scott Manley had something on that recently. I'd say within the last month or two, and interesting stuff, because that's one of the things they will have to do on these really long endurance ones going to Mars. But yeah, Lazy Boy T, 6 months is pretty much situation normal for the ISS. The only ones that are different in recent memory were like last year, which was DM2, Demonstration Mission 2, where they had Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. They went up for about 2 months, which was actually longer than they were originally anticipating. They were apparently everything was working well to the point where they said, you know, we can go the full 2 months. There's the NASA worm logo on the second stage, or neon logo, depending on what you want to call it.
He tells me we're still holding at 30% probability of violation, which means still 70%. That's where we stand.
That
Yeah,
was
they-
a serious drop in quality.
70%, wow.
It's a light shower,
It is a light shower.
and they're hoping that will.
And then there's
clear out
there's the crew access
behind
arm.
that and give us that clear weather to launch. But indeed, we've got rain coming down at the launch pad and right here at the host desk.
Yes, we do.
While we wait
Watch
for
them
the
go to
announcement
T minus
closer, let's
5
take a
minutes and then
minute now
cancel
to
it on
learn
us.
more about what
That
Crew-3
actually has
will
happened
be
much
doing
closer to launch
for
than
arrival
that.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
8 seconds for, but then again, that was for an uncrewed launch.
I'm Kayla Barron, a mission specialist.
Hi, I'm Isa.
They have about they once they have a very narrow window. Once that rocket's fueled, they need to go. if there's anything that delays it, that's it. The mission is scrubbed for the day. So you
Yeah,
know,
it's a
Space Force is
they call
always
that.
constantly
Mhm.
watching the weather because the weather is something that just dictates everything.
Absolutely.
So the Crew-3 mission
Are they
is
still
for
launching out
NASA's
of Florida?
SpaceX commercial space
Yes, they
vehicle
Oh
are.
yeah.
to the
They're out of.
International Space
They're
Station.
launching out of Launch
We will
Pad
be
30,
working
Launch
on the
Complex
International
39A,
Space
which
Station for around 6
played host to
months,
most
doing lots
space
of
shuttle launches, and of
experiments, lots
course,
science.
a good many
And
Apollo
Crew
launches,
Dragon
including
is
that
one
of
of
Apollo
our
11.
newest ways to get
You'd
there.
think they'd have found
There have
more
been Soyuzes that have flown to the
somewhere with a
International
more
Space
stable
Station with
climate to
crew.
do launches
The
out of.
space shuttle flew to the International Space
Yeah,
Station, and now the
but
Crew
the thing
Dragon is
is,
taking
that puts
human
it pretty
beings
close
to
to
the
the
International
equator,
Space
so it gives
Station. So
them
we
gives them a
partnered with
bit of a
SpaceX
boost.
in the commercial crew
Mm-hmm.
program. They
Anything like
design, build,
further
and operate
north,
these
like say
vehicles that take us,
Vostochny or
transport us to the
Plesetsk,
International
those
Space
don't
Station
give
so
as
that we can
don't
contribute to the
those don't
amazing
give
work that
nearly
we're
as
doing
much
up there.
boost. And
Yeah,
I think even
rotational
Baikonur is the
velocity.
same thing. Yeah, exactly. And of course the best ones. Hey, Judex, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for coming by. Yeah, he and three others of us, we did a Phasmophobia collab the other night for another one, which was Mitty Marsh. She just celebrated her first year of VTubing.
Congratulations to Minty
Yeah.
Marsh.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So you really feel like you've become a resident
So
of space,
anyway,
a resident of zero G.
We
go
were
ahead and start
talking
this
about
camera.
Getting an
oh
idea
gosh,
of how
now I
this
lost my
works.
train of thought.
Every day
That's
is
okay.
a long series of problem
Uh-oh.
solving. You got to figure out where to put your pencil. Where
Guy's
All those
losing his
cashews about
nuts.
to float away.
We were talking about the weather, right? And you know how it dictates the equator, right? One of the best launch complexes as far as the equator goes would be the French New Guinea.
We spent a lot of our time
French
training
Guiana?
because that's the
Guiana,
most
thank you.
dynamic phase of the mission.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's
where
such
Ariane
a
Space
tiny
has its launch
fraction.
complex.
The point is going
Yep.
to the space station and doing some incredible work up there.
Yeah, that's
So our
where
time on
the
the space
Ariane
station
5 is
spent,
launching
one,
from,
keeping the
and
space
I
station
believe
healthy.
Vega, correct?
It's been up
If
there
I'm
for 20
correct.
years. There's a lot of
Yes, you are
systems that
correct.
need
And-
maintenance,
Vega also
upgrades,
launches from there.
and
Speaking of
operating
Ariane
systems that
5,
are working well. We also do some
when's the
incredible
James Webb
science. The space
telescope
station is a
going up?
national laboratory orbiting around
They're
Earth, and
saying
it's a really,
December,
really unique
but I can't.
environment.
I'd actually have to go
Once we
confirm
arrive
it.
on the International Space
Okay.
Station,
They
we
may
will run a lot
they
of
may still what they may end up
experiments.
doing
I'm a
is
material science engineer, and so
because
my
that's
focus will be
because
lots of
another I don't know what
experiments
the
in
I'm not sure
material
what the
science domain,
specific issues
but
are
also
on
life
that,
sciences will be
but
very
yeah,
important.
originally they were going to try and do it
All kinds
either
of
last or
research
this
going on
month, but
daily
now they're
basis
now they're
that
shooting for
lead to just
December.
fundamental changes in the way we understand how our world works. That will definitely be the eyes, ears, hands, and the actuator for the experiments that help lead to the science.
Actually, what I'm going to
discoveries that
probably do
push our
is
species further
this is not one
beyond
of
the planet
one of the
and
streams I want to do
understand and operate on our
these
Earth
redeems, so I'm going to refund that
One
for
of the
now.
great legacies of the space station is not just
Because
gonna
I also have to
be
keep track of time, and this is a collab.
but very importantly, the international
Not so much the collab, but
cooperation.
more
This
the
is one of the first,
but more the
certainly
but if
today's,
anything else, it's
perhaps most
the stuff we're going to be
prominent
talking about
international
throughout.
cooperation
And I
for
think that's
exploration.
Mark Kelly who went up for about who's one of our NASA astronaut that went up for a year. So what do you think about SpaceX winning the ladder lawsuit? I don't know. I don't really pay that much attention to the legal shenanigans, and on top of that, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not. Speeder 13, Speeders, thank you so much for the follow. And of course,
You're
he's right here with
welcome,
us.
Kev.
Welcome to the workshop and labs. Even though we're already well underway.
And to convey this message, the fascination of space, to all the people.
Yeah, speaking of one of the things they've been doing is one of the things they've been doing lately also is they were also replacing several of the solar arrays on the space station, and those went up on a couple of the Cargo Dragon missions. And that's another thing about the Cargo Dragons is they look just like these. Let's see what they're saying
Not
here.
that they can't breathe when it's closed, but certainly you can have a little bit of.
They said that they have a little bit of rain going on there.
Helmet open.
Close
Right,
out team will
exactly.
perform final.
So long as there's no thunderstorms, they should be good to go.
Oh boy.
That's kind of something NASA learned during Apollo 12, that if there's thunder, if there's a bit of rumbling, don't launch.
Yeah.
Yes, and we heard that.
So
Well,
for
I
those,
mean,
had 4 good
in that regard, the
that's
public
all that
pool
is,
is
and a
probably a
very
little
important
more
stop,
weather
that needs to be
conscious
done
if
before they can close
rain
down.
is fine.
yeah,
Everything is
but
Yeah, SEC to Ox, yeah.
Yep,
That's
SCE
what saved
dogs.
that mission.
Mm-hmm.
And just because somebody happened to have that in their mind,
They're
that
like,
could have,
wait a minute.
had they not known that, that mission would have been doomed pretty much from the outset.
Oh yeah, they would have totally lost that entire, rocket. But then they're like, wait a minute. Oh, we can just click this flick the switch, refresh everything, you know, do 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 do, you know, and then boom, Windows sounds. What the hell? This is 1970. What's going on here? Or no, yeah, 1969.
They already know how to do their jobs. It's really more a matter for that 1% of the time where something off.
Yeah, I think Apollo 12 might have been 70 actually. Now that I think about it.
Interactions between those players to get the best result. And so managing those different.
I'm really bad with the names and the numbers, but 69 is when we did the moon mission.
Yep,
that is correct. That is when
And,
Apollo 11
yeah.
was there.
It takes to put people in space and then to
I know.
I think what's
The usual tech support answer. Yes, I get that.
none of those people are doing it for the money.
Having done tech support for many years, I know that one only too well.
Because they believe in solving pushing exploration. That's the reason people.
Yeah, though. Speaking of Apollo and whatnot, I recently rewatched a series that was on HBO, directed by Tom Hanks, called From the Earth to the Moon. And let me tell you, it's a really good series. They go into a lot of detail and whatnot. There's certain things that they use that I'm like, wait, what? Like artistic wise, but other than that, it's a really good documentary that really goes into like the lives of the astronauts and everyone involved.
Was it produced by Tom Hanks, or was he just
I
the
believe it was
personality in it?
directed and produced. Tom Hanks did like every episode. He did like a foreword of it, and then it went into the episode, and it I don't want to say it plays out like a. I guess you could consider it like a dramateutery, a drama documentary. Yeah, a docudrama. But, it really, each episode features something different. So there's one episode that's like, about James Webb, how, NASA had to go on this, how Kennedy set NASA on this, mission to get to the moon. And then, then they talked about Apollo, or about the tragedy with Apollo 10, was it? Or Apollo 1?
Yeah, Apollo 1 where Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee all perished in the capsule while they were doing a plugs-out test on the pad in 1967.
Like, that's the one thing is...
That whole corridor of dates has 3 different U.S. space tragedies practically within days of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So... Anyway, it looks like they're in the process of getting ready to close the hatch.
Yep.
To answer your and to say and as far as did you know that parts of the movie Apollo 13 were in zero G? Yes, that's because they were using the Vomit Comet, which is a modified Boeing KC-135, excuse me, stratotanker, which flies a parabolic course. They go up, they ascend in altitude, and then they descend in a very steep angle, and that simulates zero gravity. But they depending on the parabola angle, they can actually simulate other bits of gravity, including the gravity of the moon as well as the gravity of Mars. In fact, the folks at Mythbusters did one thing. I think on one of the anniversaries for the moonwalk, they actually did just that. And they basically said, there's just no way they could not have gone to the moon, because when they did the 1/6 gravity and they actually started moving just like the astronauts did on the moon, he said that was the most natural method of locomotion, that it actually felt natural to move that way. It's like, there's just no way they could have simulated that somewhere. They tried springs, they tried other things like that, or slow motion. There was just no way it would have worked that way. The only way,
especially not in the 60s.
Oh yeah. And especially considering back in the 60s, they didn't have wide-bodied airliners such as the Boeing 747, the McDonnell Douglas DC-10, or the Lockheed L-1011 TriStar.
Well, I'm not prepared to confidently declare what did and didn't exist at any point in time, especially when special interest groups are involved.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just say it's incredibly implausible.
I was always fascinated by space.
Mm.
And what does an astronaut actually do? So an astronaut works with a lot of engineering
I do
stuff,
remember from that
science
episode,
in
though, they
space.
very
We
specifically
work with
said,
international teams,
yeah, we were able
and
to,
the
at the very
invention that we
least,
have to do
vindicate
is
almost
sort
all
of
of the
a combination
points
of these four
towards
facts,
the moon landing
engineering on the
conspiracy,
edge of what
and
is possible,
a lot of comments to
science,
that were along the
international
lines
teams,
of,
and adventure. That's only
yeah, but
possible
you guys are
with
exactly the kind of
I
people
wanna
they'd
say
hire to
thank
do
you
the
to
to
everyone
fake the moon
who helped
landing
me
because
to
they were in
arrive at that
special
point that I am
effects
today.
for
I will be
decades.
thinking of you when I
Yeah.
fly to space, and I send all my love.
And the
you
best
down
way to
the ground.
simulate that is, like I said, with is flying parabolas like that.
Yeah,
Or building underwater.
Back live inside the
Yeah,
Dragon
even
capsule
underwater,
as
that's another thing that
crew
they
goes
said
through their
it wouldn't
various
have worked very
communication
well.
checks and suit checks.
because
would
when
have,
you're
yeah.
because when you're underwater, there's a pressure from the water.
Awaiting that hatch
But
closure.
when you're going parabolic in the sky,
By the
there
way,
is no pressure or
if you would
anything
like
that
to ask us a question,
press your
by
body.
us, I mean Shannon.
So it's
Just pop on over to
entirely
Twitter
the
and use
gravity.
hashtag
So there is
Mm.
nothing like
That will send us a question. We'd love to
not
have
pressure,
them.
but
Shannon has been
The pressure of
uh
your suit's the only thing that's pressing out, like in the vacuum of
yes,
space. That
yes,
actually reminds me of,
Only when you're
like
underwater, it's pressing in on you.
even the patch.
like for
which
example, the
yes. The
first
one.
Russian.
you're big into
Oh,
your
go on.
crew patch,
Of
Shannon.
course, I like
No,
our
no,
crew patch. I think it's pretty good.
so
You know, it's hard to not. I
even
love
even
blue, I
when
love
you're
dragon.
training in the water,
The
so the
Crew 3
water
patch
is
is
pressing
pretty cool
on
as well.
you.
The logo was
But when
designed
you're
for the
going
mission by
parabolic,
the
there's
astronauts themselves, just as you did, Shannon.
like Kat
They say
says,
that the capsule flies
there's
upward, while the flames
like
below honor the
depending
thousands of
on
workers
where you
who
are on the
worked on Crew 3.
on the
Number
parabolic,
3 is prominent
you
in the
will
shape of the
get to
exhaust below, and
you
is next
you will
to
have
a
a
dragon.
chance to
And the highlighted stars
experience
represent
every
Crew 3,
single gravity
you
on
can
the
see
moon,
there, and the 4 red
on the
planets.
Mars, and
They
even a
represent
zero G.
humanity's dream to explore Mars.
Yeah,
A
you'll
beautiful
feel
patch.
basically
Yeah, it is
every
a lovely
gravity
patch.
point
It is
between
very
0
well
and
crafted.
Earth.
You work with the
And actually
Yes.
put
quite a
together.
bit
Yes,
above
so
that
each
when
crew can either
the
design it
plane
themselves
levels
or
out
they
and you
have a choice to
experience some
work with
extra
an
G's.
artist. And so the crews are trying to take elements
Yes,
of what
that's
what
right.
they feel really represents their flight and put it into a patch.
I'm
Yeah,
not
as a
sure
matter of
what the
fact,
G rating is
And I
though,
imagine,
like
has
how
anybody,
many G's it
flown
is.
one themselves?
Oh, sure.
Oh, how
Well,
about that?
I'd actually have to see what kind
Especially
of,
the
from what I
artsy
understand, they
Nicole
actually,
Scott,
when they were
former
doing more
shuttle astronaut.
parabolas, I
She's
guess so as to
She's
save on
definitely
fuel,
an artist. I love
they
her work.
As
immediately
you can see, they're
they immediately
preparing
started
for the
gaining
hatch
altitude
closure. It looks like they
by
are
going and making a
documenting
very
the
high,
seal
very sharp
around
angle of
the hatch.
attack that
Yes,
would
they
install the
will.
plane.
They're looking very carefully
And it
to
was
make
such a
sure
strong
that
angle
seal
that
is
it really
completely
pushed them down
intact
on the
because that's
ground,
what's gonna
on
hold
the floor of
pressure
the
inside
plane.
capsule.
You don't want any
I think
foreign
like
object
6 or
debris,
7
what
G's
we
is
know
the
here at NASA
is
as
like the
fog,
range you
Fog,
can
right?
which is anything
most
that's not
comfortably
supposed to be
maintain
there.
Anything that's not
consciousness,
supposed to be there,
but
and it can be.
Mhm.
I'd
They're
imagine
looking
some
for
of these
really tiny
guys
things. Something as
with all the
small as a
training and
human hair
G-force experience they
will,
get,
cause
they
that
probably can go up to
seal
like
not operate
14.
properly.
I've seen people do 14 G's before. Or at the very
It,
least maintain consciousness for
And
like
they're
7
using,
seconds at 14 G's.
it appears to be smartphones to take these
it's
pictures.
They
it's
do. I
worth
mean, the cameras
noting
on the phones
that
are so good these days that you
sometimes
can
when
take some pictures and
sometimes
hold
when
them up and
something
really
goes a
get a
little bit
good
wonky on
view
a
of what
Soyuz,
that
it's
hatch
not
looks like.
They
uncommon
are
for
good
them to
cameras
enter
indeed.
instead of a sliding
Flying
reentry,
just before
where
the
they
last flight
where they
of
go
Crew 3,
slide
I should
sideways
say,
through the
with the
atmosphere
crew
to
from
slow down and then
Inspiration
go back to
4,
going
our NASA
falling
social
downward.
team was
It's not
pretty
uncommon
good. Our
sometimes
page
for them to
for
actually go
this
ballistic,
launch from the
literally.
Kennedy Space
There they go.
Center,
They're
and
closing the hatch.
as you
Ballistic.
can see,
And
the
Like the
hatch being
speed of
closed
a
right
of
there.
a bullet? Ballistic
oh,
missile?
much faster than that. They're going
Oh
Mach
gosh,
20
yes,
when they're on
Puzzle.
Yeah,
orbit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's gonna be
That's why I
Expedited.
don't
fast,
understand
You're
what you
you're
mean by
you're
ballistic.
not feeling too well
gotta
at that
overcome
point.
that
Like
force,
you're hitting
to
10
get,
G's.
the
Oh,
light
like
to
physic. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Physically. I thought you meant.
physically.
Yeah, I was confused. I was like,
Social
what?
video as we look. Looks
Yeah,
like,
they have a
the
parabolic
Frequency
abort
number
for
36 is putting
for
a bit of force.
Yes,
Soyuz that
I
literally
see what you're
it
saying.
happened on MS-10
We'll get that hatch
where
Yep.
And now
they
it's
needed
the
to
process
board or
of them
the one of the
filling it
boosters
up and doing all kinds of
crashed
checks
into
across
the
capsule. They'll seal it up. There'll be a pressure
Yeah,
the
'cause
test.
main
it wouldn't
stage.
detach
Does
properly.
in fact hold
Huh?
inside the capsule.
It
And you'll
wouldn't
see
detach
Yeah,
properly.
it didn't
but
detach
because
properly.
normally-
It went clank, and then they were like,
Step
"Nope,
by step.
abort."
Exactly so.
Yeah, the system. By that time, the tower that's at the top that has several solid rocket motors on there had already been jettisoned. However, the fairing has its own has its own motors and can also still pull the vehicle away in case of a problem like that.
Work on closing up
Mm-hmm.
that hatch. Let's head out to
So what they
California and
did
catch up
was
with
is
John
that
I for an update
when that
on the
happened,
operations.
the engines just kicked in, pulled the vehicle away, and then of course the rest of the vehicle disintegrated. And there were the crew of two. Of course, had to deal with the G forces on a ballistic reentry. They had just, I think they were just at the point of staging, which puts them about, I don't know, 50 to 65 kilometers up. Actually, it might even be further up.
Lean into that hatch, getting it secure, and we're getting ready now to begin what will be the hatch leak checks to make sure that all the seals.
You're not really considered completely out of atmosphere until you're at like 80 kilometers, right?
100 kilometers is what is called the Kármán line. I think it's named after Theodore von Kármán. Basically, what it means is that you're out of the point of the atmosphere to the point where you can actually jettison something like, say, the nose cap for the Starliner if it ever flies, or in the case of Soyuz or any other uncrewed vehicles that need a fairing to protect the contents of it, the fairing, and usually they'll do it just below or just above the Kármán line.
They hold gases that are used to fill the propellant tanks with hot helium. As that propellant is pulled
For my personal experience, that's just the level I know where you can get safe orbit in Kerbal Space Program without getting a decaying orbit due to air friction.
Yeah. Yeah, the Kármán line is usually where they, like I said, where they jettison any kind of protective hardware, such as a fairing or anything like that.
Right, and the air resistance wouldn't drag it back into the line of fire, or
no, it wouldn't.
No, the jet stream. I don't know the nomenclature. The big flume at the end of the engine.
Yes.
Not so much on the way up, but it helps orient the vehicle.
And one thing to bear note on this one, there is nothing that is going to be jettisoned on the way up. The Soyuz does have a, like I said, has a fairing and as well as a launch tower. SLS has a launch tower, and the Boeing Starliner has that nose cap, which covers the docking mechanism and the outside portion of the hatch, the docking hatch.
Currently, right now, we are no-go on weather for flying through precipitation. But they also expect that to clear up and for us to be go when we get to
Where are they
Ooh, that
right
doesn't
now?
sound good.
They are at Cape Canaveral, Florida, which is, I'd say, southern down the peninsula.
It looks a little darker than I thought it would be for only 6 o'clock.
Well, it's 7 o'clock there.
Oh, I thought they were CST.
Yeah, 7 o'clock. Okay.
No, they're East Coast.
My brain went to Pacific Standard Time, and I'm like, nah, it's like 8 o'clock, but I'm on Moon Standard Time now, so fun stuff. Yeah, though.
Yeah.
Wait, is it there is like daylight saving? No.
Yeah, daylight savings was the other day.
Yes. Daylight saving, because in Indonesia we don't have daylight saving, so yeah.
Yeah, that's certainly something that I think, like, the United States needed to think about and be like, do we really need daylight savings time?
Benjamin Franklin just wanted to feel special.
Yeah, pretty much.
He didn't get the turkey on the dollar, so he wanted to inconvenience everyone twice a year.
I mean, he recommended it to the Parisians and was like, hey, you guys should totally do this. Also, while wooing a ton of maidens over there as well. So, yeah.
Right. So meanwhile, they're saying that right around when it gets closer to launch, the rain will have cleared up to the point where they can actually do this.
Ideally speaking. Yes. Although it is Florida and the weather does come and go about as
a couple of things are going on.
I can't think of an analogy off the top of my head, but
it's
fair. Like the weather there is as volatile as the fuel they're sitting on, so
trying to stay comfortable in those
Well,
Actually,
it's
RP1 isn't
Florida,
that volatile.
Florida weather, Florida man, Florida
Florida
man.
man.
The
Yes, that is a
volatile
meme.
Florida man.
Well, it's Florida, so yeah, there's nothing to be surprised, I guess.
Well, Florida
Joking
man
aside.
just reacts to the weather. I don't think he controls it just yet.
That's a call out to
Yet.
You
check
say?
the
Keyword.
of the
Yet.
emergency escape system.
So,
They're gonna
Kat,
help
yesterday you were
the
telling me that they're using a kind of methane-based fuel in this for this launch.
Actually, not this one. This is for future vehicles such as Starship, as well as Super Heavy, which are both SpaceX, and New Glenn, as well as the engine
Sorry,
that
Case,
will
I think
be
I
on.
missed you.
That's not just on that one, but on ULA's
Hello, by the way.
Vulcan, which will replace Atlas, all by
Maori, I
Blue
don't know if
Origin.
you checked
Those
in
are
with
going to
me,
use
but
liquid
is
methane and liquid
is
oxygen as
my
propellants.
is the
Okay. Then you
sound
were saying
working?
this is the one that's using the.
I think that's what that.
It,
Yeah,
it's
use
a
that.
highly-
chemically similar to propane, either propane or kerosene.
It's more kerosene than that. It's more kerosene than propane. Propane is a much shorter alkane.
Right. I'm just
It's
trying
like,
to.
I believe,
I'm just trying to quantify how volatile that is relative to the old solid rocket fuel mixture.
yeah, the kerosene stuff is about the same volatility as say diesel or jet fuel.
So, as volatile as fuel.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different like burn temperatures and expansion yield. I haven't taken my physics class in a long time, so I'm not exactly brushed up on the nomenclature, but I have the concepts down decently enough.
Yeah, kerosene. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of stored stuff in the various kerosene type fuels. That's because they mainly because they and on top of that, they ignite by compression as opposed to a spark.
Oh, so
Okay,
it's
I just noticed the Expedition 66, and that's actually a very clever mission badge.
Oh, was it Route 66? I think I saw
Yeah,
that
it was Route 6.
subconsciously.
It was it was like it had the like outline of Route 66. That's great.
oh, the highway mile marker, not mile marker,
Yeah.
highway indicator.
Right.
Well, yeah, the highway.
Of course, it's I-10 now.
Historic Route 66. But right, but going back to propellants, the one thing that's kind of special with SpaceX is they've refined it down to a science of how cool that they make both the oxidizer and the liquid propellant. They just super chill it to I don't know, to a ridiculous amount, and then they keep it at that temperature, and like they've done so many experimentations just to make sure that they get the most efficiency out of it.
Yeah, especially considering the fact that you may have to relight the first stage multiple times to get it to so that you can recover it. And that's another thing is that there's supposed to be I've been hearing basically a lot of cool stuff's going to be happening in 22, including multiple Falcon Heavy missions. One of which they will probably doing probably be doing one of the toughest things they have ever done thus far, and that's land on 2 drone ships for the port and starboard common core boosters, whereas the center one is going to be expended because of the fact that they need a lot more thrust to get it up into the
That center core, man, you know, they've had the worst luck with recovering those anyways. What is it? The first, I think the only 2 super or heavy missions that they've had, they've lost both cores. One they lost on the first like demo mission, which like was so close, but unfortunately it didn't have enough propellant, and so it just free fell straight into the ocean, damaging the drone ship. The other thing, or the other one, it landed on the drone ship. One of its crush cores was just like damaged, and they didn't have the octo grabber, and so it was deemed too unsafe to try and secure for the crew. So they essentially just let Poseidon take it.
There's got to be some kind of a market for a salvage group to collect all the old rocket
How deep?
fuel things.
How deep they go? Nah, it's not really worth it. It's a very remember the ocean is very deep, and trying to get down to those depths costs a lot of money, like a lot. There's only been a couple of missions. Well, I want to say maybe a handful of missions that have actually recovered any kind of like debris from the bottom of the ocean, like deep down. I can think of what was the name of the CIA mission? There was a CIA mission which they did it. They recovered a Russian sub, at least pieces of it.
Yeah, mission.
It would be a nice home for fish.
And then, yeah.
Well, depending on how
Oh yeah,
intact
they make
these
great
things are left
artificial
on
reefs.
re-entry, you could probably use some kind of ultra buoyant foam, get those packs down there, set them off, and have it rise to the surface on its own.
Yeah, no, they usually impact pretty damn hard, and you just have maybe some flotsam, but everything else is just gone.
To give you an idea of how hard things impact the ocean, after Challenger,
Yes, the Glomar Explorer. Thank you.
The vehicle experienced about 100 G's worth of acceleration, deceleration when it hit the ground, when it hit the ocean. Nobody would have survived that.
Yeah, I know about the compression of water. Once you reach a certain speed, it's basically indistinguishable from hitting the ground.
Hitting cement.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going. It's terminal velocity. Yeah.
Well, going back to terminal velocity, it would probably be cheaper just to fit all of these parts with aerofoil than with fuel and engines to slow them down.
Oh,
yeah, that's one of the things they were considering for the Gemini program, but they ultimately went to standard parachutes instead.
Speaking of capsules and recovering stuff from the ocean, there was that one mission where they did recover the Liberty Bell 7, Gus Grissom's capsule during the Mercury missions, which sank to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, what had happened was that he blew his hatch a little bit early, and it was starting to take on water. They were trying to pull the vehicle out of the water with a helicopter, but it proved too much weight because it had taken on so much water.
Here's the thing, though: Gus Grissom isn't the one who punched the hatch too early. Those things went on their own, and they actually proved it. One thing that's kind of interesting about Apollo 1, too, by the way, is that NASA was like okay with the explosive capsule for a bit, or during Mercury, but because of that mission with Liberty Bell 7, they didn't put an explosive bolts on the capsule. So when Apollo 1 came around, if they had those explosive bolts, they could have been like, okay, hit the explosive bolts, let's open this thing up. But that's only a what if, scenario. So who knows if it would have actually saved them? Because once that fire got going.
Hello, welcome.
Well, the future of re-entry is probably going to be along the lines of space planes.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, they still have to be able to come back home from. They still need to be able to slow down from like Mach 20.
So yeah, the thing though, I don't know. I am more of a conscientious. I'm kind of a bit of an objector on when it comes to like single stage to orbit. I think there's certain things like Starship that'll do really well, but it's not going to be like, you have to have that one stage that you can expend at least enough to get into space. So
right.
Well,
but
not once the hypothetical space elevator is made.
That's true too.
And
so, yeah,
my dad's a pilot, so he likes to conceptualize these things. Something that he thought about was an air gantry for launching above the, well, I guess at the stratosphere.
Oh,
if you were to launch a rocket from balloons,
Mhm.
or his idea was balloons. I don't think that's going to be feasible, given how much.
You need massive balloons for that.
Or just a lot of really small ones.
There was a program out there that talked about that, on YouTube, where they were talking about,
Shannon, you
having an
of
arm
course,
that
on
literally
that
just
ride,
takes a
doing that
spacecraft,
science
grabs
at
it, and uses the
17,500 miles an
it's
hour.
like a space elevator, but it just grabs it
Looks like
and
they're
like
gonna
just
have a busy
uses
time up
the
there.
I
centrifugal
think
force
so.
of the
There's still
Earth
science to be
to
done.
keep it
The
moving
ground crews do a
and
very
like
good
give it
job
that
keeping
extra
the
oomph,
crews
kind of like
on
a
board
ball on a tether,
the
and you're
entire
like
day doing that science.
swinging it
Take
around,
advantage of every moment.
and you just
Kind of like
release
how
that ball.
Posigrade,
Inside the Dragon capsule,
kind of like
we
how
are T-minus
Posigrade
1 hour and
launches,
44
which is
minutes
just about
until
everything.
liftoff. Right here with
When they
Shannon
launch, they
Walker,
get a bit of a push
NASA
from the Earth
astronaut
to
who
begin
flew
with.
on Crew 1,
Mm-hmm.
watching Crew 3
Well,
prepare to get
if it's
ready
being held in
for their
place
flight. And
in
it
orbit, wouldn't that
appears they haven't
functionally
been
be
very chatty.
geosynchronous orbit?
No, they haven't been very chatty. I guess it's a quiet crew.
Mm.
Quiet Crew. That's just fine as they
Well, if you
Actually,
give it
there's
more,
their
or if you
liftoff.
give more
Crew 3 is
thrust as
scheduled to
well,
arrive to
you don't
station
need as much
days
delta
after
V in
astronauts
that
from Crew
case
2
because
return
you're
home
gaining some
from
delta
a
V from the Earth
record-setting
itself,
space flight.
giving you that
Take a
motion.
look at this at 10:33 p.m. Eastern time. The view looks a little
So it's
similar.
kind of like
This is
releasing
Crew
it,
2,
all,
though,
or
safely splashing
letting
down
go of
into the
that
Gulf off the
metaphorical,
coast of Pensacola. There's a view from the
ball
infrared
that you're
camera as
spinning
the
around you.
parachutes opened up.
And just
Someone
looking
in
at
my
the video here.
Of
Go
Shane
ahead.
Kimbrough, Megan
someone in my
MacArthur,
chat
Jack
said, "I want that space Gauss cannon," and that was another theory. That theory's been around since
Space Gauss cannon might work. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone would be able to survive it though. But getting unmanned missions into
Space
space.
Gauss cannon? What?
Probably something like a railgun or something like that.
It
Yeah, I
uses
can't-
magnets. It's basically like a magnetic train, except the magnets aren't in the train, it's in the rails.
To Earth, NASA astronauts Shane Kimbrough
Ah.
and Megan MacArthur, well, they were good tenants because they made sure that station was
Looks like
ready
they're
for Crew 3.
looks like they're going for it.
Had a chance to speak
That's what
with
I can
them in
see.
space
I guess what
before
they're doing is
Oh.
they're launching the meteorological conditions
Hey, Shane and
to make
Megan,
and
great to be with you
apparently
today.
by the time
This is
the launch
fantastic.
will
You guys are
happen,
currently
by the time the launch
over the
happens, they will
Pacific
have
Ocean,
they'll have a
cruising at
clear
17,500
path
miles
to the
per hour
sky.
towards our general direction.
That's what we like to hear.
You're going that fast.
Yes.
That Jules Verne was the one who came up, or who had that whole idea of the space cannon.
Thank you very much.
First. I'm
Man,
sorry.
he
I
was
just thought
so
of
ahead
that.
of his time.
Oh gosh, yes.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, he wrote a book about space
Yeah,
elevators.
so we've been getting
Mhm.
their sleep stations
And
ready to go
carbon
to their crew quarters, so we've
nanotubes
been
were
cleaning those and
apparently
getting them all
involved
ready,
in
so they're
that
gonna be
whole
set.
affair.
We also have gotten their
Yeah,
suitcases up
and
here.
then you
that,
have innovations like
we got one.
graphene.
Here's
That's
Raja's.
supposed to really make a
Then we
lot of
got,
that stuff happen.
Kayla's there.
Isn't
Also, the-
graphene
we
like
got Tom's
functionally
and
identical
Matthias's
to
as well,
carbon
so all your
nanotubes?
clothes are ready to go for the next 6
That's
months.
that is
So
essentially
that's
what
gonna be
they
set.
what they'll
All
do
your
is
food's
they're
ready to
actually
go
exactly
as
what they're
well.
going to be made of.
And given the size of
Oh,
suitcases, it
okay.
doesn't look like,
You
the
say
wardrobe
graphene,
is,
and I instantly
having
think,
a
oh,
lot
is
of
this an
variety.
alternative
But you
material
don't
to
need a
carbon
lot of that up in
nanotubes?
space.
Because
Tom,
graphite is
for
carbon.
the first
Yeah, it
space
is,
flight,
but
you know,
that's
for
powdered
the folks that are coming
that's
up,
that's
3 of the
powdered
4
carbon.
astronauts,
Yeah,
Well,
and
it's
a lot
also
of
got
times
some other
like
stuff in there.
Wait,
for those 3
isn't
astronauts, we know they've
graphene made
trained
from
extensively.
yeah,
graphite?
Coyote. But how
Not
much
from
power would you
pencil?
use doing that? Seriously.
Graphite is a
I mean,
constituent material,
Evangelion
but
needed to
this
use
stuff
like
is like
that's a great question.
not
Really,
even a
it's the
molecule
physical
thick,
environment that
but
we
it's
live
Yeah.
in.
a
still
lot of
insanely
power to
strong.
like shoot their railgun.
Uh-huh.
1G on Earth.
Is it
So
tensile
it's how
strong
you
or
move
just
around,
resistant to
how you move
scratching?
efficiently, how
I
you
think
can,
it's
you know, go
tensile strong
floating
more
and
than
flying
anything
through
else.
the
As
space
far as
station
resistance
without
to
crashing into
scratching,
things,
I
without knocking
don't
things
know.
off
I'd
the
have to do a
walls.
little
But
bit more
these
research
are
on
all
that.
smart folks. They're
Okay,
gonna figure it out
because,
really quick.
well,
I
They're gonna be
saw
doing
a
great work up
video
here before we know it.
on
Hey,
YouTube
Shane,
about
one of the
graphene.
veteran
It's
astronauts, Thomas Marshburn,
it's
you
literally
know him
strong
pretty well.
on the molecular
You
level.
got any stories about him? He's a
Yeah, it
veteran
is extremely
astronaut,
strong
just
because
like
of all
you.
those.
Flew on
Because
shuttle, been
carbon
up to the
has
station
4
before,
available places
and
to
both of you,
to
the
hook
astronaut
electrons
class
to,
of
and I'm not sure
2004.
if they're
So,
using
you got any good stories
if
about
they're
Tom?
connecting 4 different carbons on each side,
None really.
or if they're
Tom's
doing
such a
any kind of
great guy.
covalent
He was
bonding.
at NASA before we were selected as astronauts.
Because
That's why
covalent
it's so
bonding, for
good for
example, is how
DNA.
you have
So some folks may
CO2.
not know that. So he was kind of the go-to person in our class. Of, hey, what's it really like? What
I
all this
believe
is, how NASA runs.
now
Since he'd been here a little
it's
while,
been
he's definitely our go-to
few
person
months
for
since
that.
I went over
Tom
this
and I
in
are
my
also both from
in the
Atlanta, so we
school.
have that in common, and we've enjoyed working
I
together
believe
for many years.
covalent is stronger
many years.
Then the other one, sorry, the
Monovalent?
Currently, Crew-3,
Then what?
they're getting ready
The
to go
monovalent
up.
bonds?
I've never
Ionic?
heard that. Yeah, ionic. Yeah, I'm a little rusty in the vocabulary. I
Ionic, yeah.
apologize.
Ionic is one of them. Like, for example, the connection, like, say, between hydrogen and
So that is
chlorine
actually a
to make
French
hydrochloric
game
acid,
that
that's an
our,
ionic bond, and
ESA
it's a
crewmate
very, very
Thomas
strong
Pesquet
one.
taught us.
Assuming it's I mean it's carbon connecting the carbon, so I'm pretty
Right.
sure it's ionic because covalent is that's more that happens when there's a difference in the negative electronegativity, something like that. Again, I'm really sorry, I'm off on the vocabulary, but since
worries.
they're the same atom, they would have the same one, so I'm pretty sure it'd be ionic.
Yeah, and then you have chemicals like acetylene, which is also called ethine, which is two carbon atoms and two hydrogen atoms. The two hydrogen atoms are on the end, and then the two carbons are brought together in a triple covalent bond. Interestingly enough, I saw something where they talked about, in theory, they say it's not. They say they think it's not reactive enough, but we all know otherwise. It's so dangerously reactive. They actually have to have it dissolved in acetone in order to safely transport it.
Okay.
That got me thinking of nitrous-based, or not nitrous, nitro-based fuels.
Yeah, or in the case
Uh-huh.
of dynamite, nitroglycerin being in diatomaceous earth as a method of stabilizing it.
Monday night when they splashed down, but it was pretty special for me to be out.
Use
on
a very
that gathered
dangerous
capsule, and I
explosive
got
to help
see further.
stabilize
Extra
something.
special because I was on station when they came on
You
board,
know,
and then I got
I've
to
been
be there when
thinking
they splashed
that
down.
the sourest possible thing you could ever taste is probably
Yes,
hydrofluoric
they all
acid,
told me that
or
it
not
was great
hydrofluoric
to
acid.
see
It's
my
one of
friends.
the
Hydrochloric.
acids. Well, hydrofluoric is more powerful than hydrochloric.
Oh, I didn't know that. Sorry.
Oh dear God, it's powerful.
Oh gosh.
There's actually one that's more powerful than that, and that's chlorohydrofluoric acid.
Thanks, Daryl.
Well, I know there's like 9 different acids that are more powerful than hydrofluoric acid, but they have like 7 or 8 syllables each, and I only have
Yeah.
so much memory.
I hear that.
What?
It would be so sour. The cringe face you make would make your jaw come off because it would eat away at your bones.
Well, it would probably take a few seconds. Like, it's a big misconception that dissolving an acid is a quick affair. If you were
Oh,
to be
it's not.
submerged in the most powerful acid we have available, you would die from drowning before it got to your bones.
Oh, that'd
Right.
be painful.
It would
Yeah,
be the
but
single most painful thing you could subject a human being to.
assuming you swallow, your stomach lining would burst after a few minutes.
Well,
Meanwhile, we're
your
about an hour away
esophagus
from
would break first.
we're about an hour away from when they're going to start fueling the. They're going to what they'll do in about an hour is arm the launch escape system. In addition to pulling the arm away, they'll arm the launch escape system in case there's a problem during tanking operations, and then shortly thereafter start tanking. And on that note, I'm going to step away very briefly, and I'll be back. I'm going to keep this. What launches this today? This is Crew-3. They replaced Crew-2, who splashed down 2 days ago. So there are 4 astronauts aboard the Falcon 9. Aboard the Crew Dragon atop Falcon 9, and this one is named Endurance because of what everybody's had to deal with for the past almost 20 months, enduring the hardship that has been the COVID-19 pandemic.
Is there already a Perseverance?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
No, not a space
Perseverance is
capsule.
more the-
Perseverance.
Yeah, that's true. The
Perseverance is sitting on
rover,
Mars.
Yep. The rover Perseverance is on Mars. It wouldn't surprise me if they did decide to do that, though. And that looks like one of the Draco engines.
Yes, that is a Draco engine. Ooh.
And we're really excited
And those, I believe, are 3D printed.
this engine. But first,
But anyway, I'm going to step away real briefly, and I'll be right back. I'm going to keep the window open for so then we can so you can continue watching.
Alrighty, thank you.
All right. I remember reading something when I was in high school about a rocket engine that was built around a nuclear fission reactor.
Yes, that is actually a feasible idea. One of the concepts is that it runs really efficient because the thing is your propellant is being heated up by the nuclear reactor itself. Sure, your propellant is or your exhaust is radioactive, but it's really good in like space because obviously,
wouldn't the propellant only be radioactive if you were using a an electron heavy fuel source?
Actually, that is true.
Like you wouldn't want to use uranium
No,
as
gosh, no.
fuel,
But
because not just for how radioactive it is, but because it's so heavy.
Wait, you're talking about getting out of the atmosphere? Fuel source?
In general, like just in use as an engine.
As
Well,
an engine.
you probably wouldn't attach it to like a jet or anything, but
That's very interesting. So I mean, I know that's how most things are. I like a lot. I forget what something in space is already has a mini reactor in it. I can't put my finger on it though.
well, the theory behind it is it's a controlled, continuous nuclear detonation.
Oh wait, are we talking about? Oh gosh, what was it called? The impulse rocket, where you're literally just blowing up nukes behind you, right?
Yeah, it's not the ion engine. No,
Yeah,
the ion
no.
engine that's horribly inefficient.
Mhm.
Well, it's highly efficient. It just doesn't get you very fast.
Yeah, the ion engine's pretty efficient. There's one that I think they take like hydrogen or some other type of fuel. Although you have to keep your fuel like super chilled if you want it to be any, efficient enough. And then then there's the impulse rocket, which is just, hey, we're taking nuclear warheads and we're just throwing them, behind us, and it's the most Kerbal thing ever. And
Well,
actually, as a matter of fact, there's actually a Kerbal
Somehow
mod of that too.
yeah. I remember that.
I enjoyed that. I thought
There's a for the Iron Engine there was like a video about Star Wars.
For the TIE
There's
fighters.
the TIE fighters, yes, and there's like this video just like
They
it's
couldn't
not
move
going
this
to,
fast.
yes, it's not going to happen. Star Wars is just, well, it's science fiction.
Science fantasy.
Yes.
I mean, the spaceships move as if they're working under atmospheric lift.
And the nuclear things was just like imagine you are like sitting on a chair while you have a bunch of dynamite in your bottom, and you literally blow the dynamite off so you can
that does take a while longer than one might
blow
expect, but
yourself
again,
up.
I want to make sure that
Like sitting on a like those people who launch themselves into the air by sitting on removed airbags.
Yeah, exactly.
to work properly should we need them in an emergency. And
Not quite that adventurous,
to get ready for
but
the
yeah, like I said,
Well,
it's my
it's just like
personal.
for the nuclear things like the YouTuber says like this is not a cartoon but a real world. It's not work like that.
Space there that we do not.
Well, thank you for the join on. I'm
And it looks like
unsure how to pronounce your name.
in case they need to get up a little higher.
Step. Right, exactly.
It's good to have the right tools on hand.
Here in
just
woman.
a few seconds, around an
Welcome.
hour and 30 minutes before liftoff.
I was considering alternative planets than Earth for staging long-range missions off of, because with the fuel expenditure for getting off of Earth, it would just make more sense to start from a smaller planet.
Standard part of the launch countdown.
And Mars is really the only option we have.
Everything is working in order.
I'm not sure if it's the only option, but it's the easiest option.
Yeah, it's the easiest and probably a viable option, because at least they have something resembling an atmosphere that they might be able to do something with.
Yeah, and it's mainly because the other terrestrial options that are within reach are Venus, aka 30% sulfur atmospheric content, and
about 90 times the atmospheric pressure.
That too. And
It's
Mercury,
kinda
which is
terraform it.
and the surface of Mercury is liquid about half the year.
But I tell you, if there's still work to do, they
Oh,
will
It's
stay
yeah.
there and keep
possible,
working
just
until that hatch
very,
is adequately
very difficult.
closed
I mean,
and we know
Mars
that
is
there's
just
no
cold,
pressure.
cold
What does it
rock.
sound
Yeah.
like as you're sitting
Yeah.
there with
It's
the
Oh,
like
well,
screen?
they
60
also have
degrees during the
really
day.
bad
Yeah,
dust
you kind of hear
storms.
some thumping and
Mm-hmm.
bumping
Yeah,
going
60
on,
degrees Fahrenheit during the
you
day
do have
and
those two
minus
windows in
200
front,
some
so
odd
you can
degrees
kind of see a
Fahrenheit
little
at
bit
night.
what's happening.
But
But
we can
mostly
fix
you
that with
really
our
don't know
greenhouse gases.
exactly what they're doing. You just
That's
know
true.
that
We
they're
should probably
trying
send a
and
bunch of that up
getting
there.
that much closer to launch.
That would do it. It would help a lot.
Looks like we're gonna need to
Just
check something out a little
Honestly,
bit
Mars is
lower,
probably
higher up
an
on the capsule
incredibly
there.
easy terraforming
Step
job.
ladder came in handy.
Yeah, it sure did.
Mhm.
You just
well,
have to
Looks like they're in the
relocate
process
all
of
of the.
as easy as terraforming could be, which is a very difficult task.
looks like
It'd
they're
be
in the
great
process of
practice. It's like easy mode.
taking everything off.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Not sure
It
what
doesn't
that
appear
was.
to
I'm
be.
not sure what that was either, but it looked like it was a duct to flow
That doesn't sound very
air or
confident from the
something
announcer
to the
lady.
spacecraft.
Uh,
Clearly, it did
don't
not
know
need
what
to
that
be there
appears
This
to
is
be.
fine.
and
This
so
is
they
fine.
Yeah.
needed to
They're in the
remove it.
process of pulling
It
the
looks
thing
like
away
some
from the
ductwork.
craft.
Yes.
Yeah,
They're
they're
doing-
removing
they-
the
As they continue
arming
to work
gantry.
here.
They're getting
The
ready to
pad
pull the
ninjas. Mm.
they're pulling
That's
away
As you mentioned, they will
the
take
rubber
time
stuff that
necessary
that seals the space
to make sure
between
everything is
basically
secure.
keeps keeping it
Absolutely
like
right,
an
and,
indoor.
Everybody knows
The
what
vacuum
the
seal.
timeline milestones
I do
are,
like
so they
how
have a
getting
very good
into like
idea of when they
a
need
space
to
a
finish
space
up this
capsule.
activity. They're
It's
not going to rush through
kind
it
of
by
see
any
like the way
stretch
you
of the
walk to it
imagination.
is
They're gonna
kind
do
of
it very
similar with
methodically,
the
very
few extra
carefully.
steps to like
We
getting
have a
into a
timeline
plane. You
because
know,
as
they
was
they got the
mentioned
gantry kind of a
previously, it is
thing going on. You
instantaneous
know,
launch,
it's just
when
you
they
know
need to
couple
launch
extra
exactly
steps
on
there.
That instantaneous window
Yeah, but they got an elevator.
needed to
Yeah, that too.
rendezvous with the International Space
And who
Station
doesn't love a
on time.
good elevator?
Exactly.
And a lot of propellant underneath
But
them.
in this schedule,
Oh yeah, they're
they're
probably.
aware, as you said.
Well, no,
of
wait.
the
There's no
propellant's
telling
not
how.
underneath them right
Right.
now.
So nothing
There's
is
no telling
timelined
how
so,
much electrical
so
energy
tightly
you
that
could.
we don't have a
Well,
little
you could
bit of
probably
padding to
calculate
take
it
care
out
of
how much
problems. Now, I
electrical
don't know
energy
if
you
they've
could
got a
pull out of
problem
that
they're
much fuel.
addressing or if they're just doing the normal
But,
work,
you know.
because I was not a member
Yeah,
of
they
the
Hey,
got
Law.
consortium,
tethers
so
on
I
there to
don't
make
know
sure that in
all
case
of
something
what they
does
are
happen
doing,
and they fall over
but
the edge,
they
they
do
don't
have a good sense of when that
instantly
work needs
plunge
to
to
be
their
finished.
death, as it were.
You were on the other side.
Well,
the
how high are
inside
they
And the
up?
other pad
capsule
ninjas
for
are
Crew
leaving.
1.
They're
Oh,
about
really?
like
high.
100
The
feet or
closeout
so, I
crew,
think.
member is
150 to
now
200 feet up.
documenting
I forget.
with the
Yeah.
camera
So that's like
Right.
Not
Again,
4 seconds
all
of
the
imminent
area
death.
around that capsule.
Yep.
You can
Yep.
see
In
some of
fact,
the
there it is. That's
closeout
what they were
crew,
doing was they're
making their
separating
way
the
out of
the
the white room and down the crew
the
access hatch.
diaphragm
Oh,
away
that's a
from the
very good
vehicle.
sign. So looks like
How
we are
many
definitely
stories would
finishing
that be?
work,
Like,
and
About
If
soon,
you
15 or
put.
20.
hopefully, we will hear
Yeah.
that the launch
Well,
escape
if
system
you
is armed.
give it like
I'm
7 to
expecting
10
that
feet
in
a story.
just a few seconds. Really
Yeah.
any moment now. But he's got the light and the camera still working that.
Yep, they're taking one last look to make
Quite a-
sure that
just
there
quite a
is
bit.
nothing trapped in that hatchway, and that would.
Yeah,
inhibit
they're.
the seals
I think
from
what they're
working
doing is they're
properly.
double checking for FOD, foreign object damage, to make sure that they don't have anything that could compromise the seal on the hatch, so then they can keep the
Interesting
atmosphere
watching them
inside
work,
and
don't you
pressure
think?
and the
Yes,
vehicle
it is.
pressurized.
It's very thorough.
Very
I
thorough.
appreciate that.
Yes, very thorough. They'll have a set of procedures. I don't know if we've seen it, but the closeout crew will have tablets with them, and they will have on the tablets every step that they need to do.
And they'll also have those pictures that accompany each and every step that they took. So if they need to, for any reason,
To go
go
back,
back
and
and look at it.
Yep, exactly so.
This is, we should note, a brand new Dragon capsule.
It is. They get to ride in
I
a
wonder if
new
it's
Dragon.
cheaper for them to add those
That's exciting.
windows.
Oops, I did the wrong.
I would assume not. But that's
Windows?
without. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of just leaving it as empty, like wall space with.
The
I mean, a
booster.
window is a
Booster
structural
is
weakness.
a
Oh gosh,
repurposed
yes.
one. It is
I
not
think
making
that
its
it
first
would
flight.
be
Flew on
more
CRS
expensive to
22.
have a thing.
Landed back,
I
was refocused,
I always have all
and ready
you
for
know
use.
ready for use.
I've always thought that Windows, if
Maybe
engineers
some
could
nice
get
little
away from them
tab
and just use
against the
OLED
dark sky.
displays with like cameras on the outside,
Hopefully no more
they would
things out in
totally
the
do
way.
that.
Sounds like we have
like
enough
all the
One of the
time.
things they're looking at for
Like,
some of the future airliners because of the fact that if they're going to be doing anything that involves going supersonic and doing it in a way that doesn't create any sonic booms, they'll have to make it a nice smooth surface, and then and that pretty much precludes having windows, I think.
Well, you can make windows flush with the outside.
Mm.
I have my pessimistic doubts that like supersonic will actually ever get off the ground, you know, to a realistic thing, because it has to be cost effective. People would rather be, you know, spend 8 hours on a 737
See from that view,
than,
looks
you
like there's a
know,
lot of fog up in
maybe
that
an
corner.
out
It does look
2
that
to
way.
3 hours on like Concorde. I forgot how long
But fog-
Concorde took.
fog
I
is
don't
a
think it
travel.
would at
No,
least
it
be
won't. Neither will the
commercially
thin clouds
very
that,
popular.
we've had in the
Yeah.
area.
That's
Just
gonna
like
Explained to me
just
by
like
And
how
another officer that we've got
just
some
like how
offshore fog,
suborbital jumps with
that,
Starship.
basically,
No
a
one's really
high-pressure
gonna want to
system,
go through that
north of
stress.
us that's spinning and
Well, we got to
filling
figure
Starship?
out alternate
moisture,
methods
Yeah.
of propulsion.
from off the ocean, off the
either,
Atlantic
yeah.
Ocean, over the Kennedy Space Center. But
Like,
there's a
what was that
layer of dry
declassified
air
information
in the
release? We
mid-levels of
witnessed an
the
aircraft
atmosphere that has
breach the
soaked
speed
up
of
a fair
sound
amount of
without
that
creating a
moisture,
sonic boom.
and it is essentially
Mhm.
drying it out.
I
Well,
haven't heard of
Serving as kind
that.
of a, you know,
I'm not
It
saying
was
that
like-
there isn't such
effect.
thing.
Blow dryer.
It's
Blow
almost
dryer for
conspiracy
Florida.
level, but it was like
Well, the four
declassified
Crew-2
information
astronauts
from the
not only
80s or
broke
something.
a record for the longest
Ah.
stay for a commercial space flight at
And you can
193
almost
days. They
discredit
also
it because all
got
the
a lot of
UFO
science
people
done.
love it.
Let's take a look at that now.
Oh yeah, of course they do.
Oh,
No surprise there.
Going back to the whole idea of windows, here's something interesting from Apollo. They were gonna have like wide, massive open windows, and then the engineers were like, no, why do you
If
need
someone
these? They
touches
can-"
that,
Yeah, and they're like, screw that noise. Why don't we just have the that, and also the weight. The weight was a big thing too.
Oh yeah.
That was mostly what they were thinking of. And they were
Yes,
like,
glass.
well, what if we just had them stand? They're in 0G. Why do they have to sit? And so they essentially they essentially just came up with the idea of having these small triangle windows and just having them like straight up like on, you know, on top of them. And that's how they, you know, that's how it worked. You don't need big windows for something that small. I think
Yeah,
that
not
was
to
also in
mention
From
would,
the Earth to the Moon.
Not to mention, there's the whole idea of structural integrity.
Oh
Even
yeah.
though
Well,
triangles,
triangles are a
one of the-
fairly sturdy shape.
Yeah.
Triangles.
And then there's the matter
They're,
of then there's the matter of something like the New Shepard. They have these big bulbous windows. They must have done something where they can actually get it to the point where they can have those windows that big where you can just go out there and look out the window and
Are they dome
and
shaped?
you in more or less, yeah.
Okay, because structurally speaking, spheres are more sturdy than triangles.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other thing is that they don't have to worry too much because it's on a, you know, a ballistic trajectory anyways. You know, it just goes up
Yep.
and then it comes back down. It doesn't like go anywhere, you know, in where it has to re-enter at any kind of like large velocities, like Dragon does, which looks like a toasted marshmallow when it comes down.
Oh yeah.
You know, I've
It
always
really
wondered,
does.
how much force does the vacuum of space apply? I mean, that has to be measurable.
Shannon, it looked to me from the infrared
Yeah.
video that they had pretty calm
But
waters,
basically,
and
the
you were
thing
out
is with
there,
space,
you
it's
experienced a
not
similar-
entirely
Yes,
empty.
you
Even when
definitely
you
want
go
calm
in
waters
the
when you
space,
splash
in the
down
in the
water
in the
because,
in the
you really
the
don't
space
want that capsule rocking
that's
too much.
directly
That's gonna make the
between
crew feel badly if they,
even two galaxies.
have
There's
too much
still
motion.
something out there.
You don't wanna
It's
be
not
bouncing around in the
100%
seas,
a
whether it's
hard
in a boat
vacuum.
or a space capsule.
No.
Yeah.
Because
I think the
because
lower
as
limit
they
is
say,
like
Good. Well,
one
NASA
hydrogen
leaders are
atom every
watching
square
this
meter or
launch,
something.
from
Yeah.
If there's
right here
if
at the
there's
Kennedy Space Center,
nothing,
watching the
it would
astronauts inside Crew
be
Dragon and
pure
with
pure
waiting
zero.
Pure vacuum, yes.
Yeah,
anticipation.
or absolute
NASA's
zero,
Ray
and
Lewis
that's
is with a
just
special guest right now
doesn't.
from
It's just
ESA
not.
at OSB
Well,
2.
you have things radiating
right, Daryl.
everywhere
I'm
in
here
space,
with,
so you
Yeah.
can't really
NASA
hit
astronaut
absolute
and
zero.
geophysicist Alex
Unless
you're in,
Davis,
like-
two-time
unless
flyer
you're
to space
encased
on
in
the Russian
something.
Soyuz. Alex, thanks
Yeah, and then there's the notion that and hydrogen is the single most common atom, single most common substance in the universe. And it's also the simplest.
We were talking
Why
earlier,
it's number
Tony,
one on the
about
periodic table.
the difference
Mm.
between
Yep.
you've flown to
Indeed.
space twice. This is Matthias's first time, and it's totally different flying a
That's right.
simulator
The one of
versus
the
the real thing,
astronauts on here is
sitting on
actually
top of the rocket
of the
where
two
Matthias is
veterans that
right
are on
now.
here.
So explain the difference and what
The
Matthias
one of
must
them
be
is
feeling right
the other American astronaut. He is 61, making him the third oldest person to go to orbit.
61.
Ooh.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing the difference is, you know,
This is
it's
very
like
impressive.
sitting on this alive being there. It shrieks, there's
Of course,
steam
the
here, it's
let's see,
powered
the
up,
oldest person to
humming,
ever
and
orbit, of
you know, when you
course,
sit on
was
top,
John
it's
Glenn,
sometimes
and the
the
oldest person to go to
like sway
space
in the
in
wind,
general, of
maybe
course,
just ever so
nowadays is
slightly,
William
but you notice
Shatner.
it. So
Mm-hmm.
there is a difference. You know, you're going somewhere.
Which was an absolutely beautiful thing to see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And the thing, and my mom and I were talking about Shatner's explanation of his experience. He was pretty earnest about what he said. I mean, he was
Yes, that's
I
totally
mean,
right. There's,
say
you
what
know,
you might
ways to
about the guy as
really
an actor
simulate
or a human
microgravity
being,
down
but
here on
apparently
Earth.
he
That's why we
really
have to fly up there to do all that
it
science
really
experiments.
affected him
But it
very
also
deeply.
includes training, like how to live,
Oh
I
going through
damn.
the
right? How you get your bearings,
going through the
you
overlook
know, how to
effect.
translate
I
Uh.
am
what we call
sorry.
floating from one
Oh.
end of space to
I
the other.
remember one story
You know,
about
how to
Shatner. The
sleep, it's
thing.
how to go to the
Speaking of
toilet,
him,
all things that you need to figure out
where
on
like
the
on the
day,
set
right?
of Star
And
Trek,
you
it was
have
the
training,
Trouble
so
with the
that's gonna be
Tribbles
a challenge.
episode,
And
which these small little things, these small little furry things, just like took over the Enterprise, and
Yeah, and
they
ate some of the food
opened.
supplies.
He opened up a hatch, and I guess the prop department like threw a ton of them on him. And I guess because they didn't like Shatner, or there's this rumor about that. They literally threw more at him after the fact.
Oh my
You know,
goodness, I'd have to go look that. That sounds
yes,
hilarious.
it literally, and you could just, it's almost like the disgust on his face is just genuine. It's great.
turbo engines that use less fuel, or
I
life
personally
that's important,
am
but
a
also like
pretty big
cell
original
experiments
Star Trek
for
series
cell
fan.
aging.
I've only ever watched the
People
original
have,
series though, so I guess I'm a little
muscular
biased.
diseases down here.
Mhm.
A really nice set of experiments. They actually have a biopressure for
But
sleep
yeah,
that
that's
really
that's
improves
a really
to
good
go to room
episode. It's
with
nothing super serious. It's very light and humorous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've
Which
only ever
is
seen the first series
which
with
is
Shatner.
it's
One thing I really
that's
need
one
to
of
see.
the sorry.
The one I want to see again, though, is Trials and Tribulations, which takes bits of the Trouble with Tribbles and intersperses the DS9 cast with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in Indonesia, we at that time when Star Trek was a big hit,
I do not have
there's
Netflix, by the way.
ah
I was talking with somebody in my chat. I'm sorry. Go
ah
ahead.
it's okay. So when Star Trek was a big hit, there's no television in Indonesia show it. So I almost never saw a Star Trek, either uh, except for the movies, the new one. But when it's
Windows are silly and
like
useless. I totally agree.
what's his
Aerospace
name?
disclosures are not to be taken at face value.
Picard,
Very true too.
Patrick
Yeah,
Stewart.
with
But
Stewart.
yeah, I never saw it.
I do know
So
that there
sad.
is a memeable video game about Star Trek: The Next Generations. Like
Ah,
it looks PS1 era.
Oh
never
gosh.
played too. I just know some of the Star Trek because of the memes,
Mm-hmm.
but
Oh, so incredibly memeable.
it,
Oh
yep.
my gosh. Thinking about Star Trek and like, Star Trek, there's actually is a couple of games out there that I can think of off the top of my head that are very that kind of have that whole idea of like a space bridge crew and whatnot. One of them is a game called Pulsar: The Lost Colony, which is a 3D what is
I
it?
think there's
Kind of like a
an
3D first
actual.
person game.
I think there's an actual Bridge Crew video game
Yes, there is
for
too.
VR.
Yeah, there's that. Oh yeah, so a few. Yeah, there's actually a Star Trek Bridge Simulator that's a VR game, and there's what's cool. There's also another game called Artemis Space Bridge Simulator,
Yes,
which
that was.
it's not a VR game, nor is it like a first person game. It's a LAN game. So you play with
Yeah.
you get a bunch of your friends together, you have like 5 computers, all running it on a LAN,
Yeah.
and you guys all
We
each
actually.
manage different stations. It's so much fun to play. I wish I could get some people together like
LAN?
IRL for it.
LAN.
Basically,
That's
we
like
had at one of the
Interesting.
cons. At one of the cons, I do a lot of work for the networking on. They
Mhm.
actually did. They actually had an Artemis session going.
Yeah.
Basic and basically it's just like that. It's a LAN game, not VR, but basically everybody has their own stations and such. And one other thing, somebody in my chat said, "What about the Star Trek animated series that had the original actors voice their characters?" Another note about that particular series, two of those cast members, notably James Doohan, who primarily voices Scott, voices a lot of characters, as well as Majel Barrett, who normally voices Chapel, voices a lot of characters there too, including one of the exclusive characters there, Lieutenant Morez, which is a humanoid cat type creature.
Oh, you're talking about the new, okay, the new Star Trek thing.
No, this is from the 1970s. This was done
Okay,
by
the one with all the
the
memes. Then.
animated series done by Filmation back in the day.
memes.
The ones that it looks kind of like it was done by the same people who did He-Man. And
Those are exactly
and
the same people, in fact. That's exactly the same studio.
What? I didn't know
Oh.
that.
Really?
That's
there was only
crazy.
one
Is
for
the
the
name
well,
of the
maybe
race, by the
two.
way.
I'm pretty sure they also did the Super Friends. I might be wrong on
Pretty
that
sure
though.
they did that too. It's been a long time ago. They also did. They did a whole bunch of other items back in the day.
Shuttle and space station missions. In December 2020,
I can never bring up Super Friends without thinking of the Wonder Twins and their
Wonder Twin
octopus
powers
ice
activate?
unicycle. You know, I learned the extent of their powers a while ago, and I constantly wonder why they just go with such vanilla options for their abilities.
Well,
If it
some of
works,
those
it
things
works.
you can't do as humans necessarily. Even vanilla type options sometimes.
Well, I
It's been
mean,
a while.
I don't know. It was what, the 60s? They had to play it fast and loose.
Oh yeah, of course.
Besides,
I
some of
remember
these
the 60s were still pretty old for the animation for the day, because they were actually finally starting to understand
I
the
knew it.
they were
They
finally
did make a lot
understanding
of furries.
the whole concept of
I have
limited
nothing against furries.
animation,
Disclaimer.
already pioneered by Chuck Jones, which almost cost him his job.
Ooh.
For that particular cartoon, go look up the Dover Boys. That is the very first ever limited animation cartoon. Otherwise, everything else was fully animated back in the day.
Damn those Dover boys, they drive me to drink.
Liftoff time.
I think that's right.
For 9:03 p.m. Eastern time.
I'm sorry, that's the first. That's the thing I remember.
Oh yeah, that's that was classic Chuck Jones there, and that was the beginning of what he would what ultimately would really propel him to stardom, as it were. And a lot of that stuff would come much later.
And Matthias Maurer, they donned their SpaceX suits in the historic crew quarters suit-up room. They walked out of the crew quarters.
So in the meantime, it sounds like things are a lot more go now than they were before earlier.
They climbed inside the SpaceX
Must have hit a low pressure
Endurance,
system.
And now we are seeing
Probably.
them live while they await liftoff. And Shannon, what is
And
the crew doing
they've
right
already
now in
basically
these moments as
detached
they wait?
the crew
Yeah,
access
it's
arm to the
they are
vehicle to the
waiting,
point
but
where
they
they can
know that
actually
they're
swing it
getting closer
away.
and closer to launch. The time
So,
really starts to
for
feel
all
like it's
intents and
speeding up,
purposes,
especially
everything
when we
is
get
ready
that
to
launch
go.
escape system arm. But what
Everything
More
they're
or
is
less, the
all
only thing
thinking
you have
green.
to
about
do
the
now is
tasks
wait
ahead.
and
They're thinking
wait
about
until everything's good and
running through
ready,
the
and then
nominal
they'll go ahead
procedures as
and
well as running through any
start tanking
emergency procedures
operations
that
shortly
case they
after
need
they
them.
If you remember back
arm
in
the
April, we talked a lot
LES.
about this
I
with
know
both
you have to
NASA
be
astronauts James Kimbrough,
extraordinarily
Megan McArthur,
calm
JAXA astronaut,
as astronaut,
Aki Hoshide, and ESA
but if I
astronaut
need to
come
sit
up
there
every
and
day
wait for
to
an
the
hour,
space
I would
station,
I
and
would
those four
lose my
returned
mind.
from their
I'm
6-month
pretty sure they're
mission.
Yeah,
asleep right
that's
now.
Shane Kimbrough saying after he splashed down, it's great to be back.
I
They all
remember.
have their eyes
Yeah,
closed.
looks like so.
And so,
because
not that I
because
would know,
if you look at the video, they're just like close their eyes and
Oh, that one
relaxing.
dude. Yeah,
the next
the
hour,
one
we will
astronaut
conduct a
on
series
the
of
second
polls.
one from the
The
left,
pad crew
he like
has
itched his
started
nose. That reminds me.
Yeah.
When you're in a
the
spacesuit, like you know, like the actual
get
EVA
ready
suit,
for launch
you
through
can't
these
actually
series of
scratch your
polls.
nose. So if
The
you have a
crew will
nose
also
scratch,
arm
they
the
have like a
launch
little.
escape
They might
system,
have like a little
and
piece of
fueling
Velcro
of
on
the
the helmet, and
Falcon
you can
9 will
just
then
go
begin. Launch
Yeah,
go
Yeah.
over, try to
I
itch your
remember.
nose.
This will
It's
I
like,
include
oh
remember an
god.
astronaut was interviewed with that, and the quote is, "You shake, rattle, and roll, baby."
Yep.
7:10 p.m.
Yeah.
Eastern
In
on
Yeah, I
fact,
thought
Thursday,
that's true.
November 11th, which
in
is
fact,
Veterans Day, and it's not
there
lost
are
on us
several
that
different
we have
videos out
two
there
active military
of
members
James May,
on this
originally
flight.
of Top
And
Gear.
so it seems
Actually,
fitting.
hold that thought for a
I
sec.
think
I
that we
got a phone
remember
call
all
coming, and I'll be
veterans who have
right with.
served.
Right, yes,
All
it's
right.
important to
All
recognize
right.
our veterans.
I guess the
And
one advantage
NASA
these
definitely has a
incredibly
long
tight
history of
helmets have
working with
over the
military
fishbowl
service.
helmets
We
is
are a
that
civilian
it makes the
organization,
Velcro
but they
easier
do
to
provide some
reach.
expertise to us.
Yes.
And as you
Yeah.
pointed out, we've got two active duty military on that flight.
I think I would
Many
personally
test pilots
prefer a
from
tight
military
helmet
ranks have come through
because
NASA,
it
of course.
doesn't make you
That
feel
was
like a
certainly true in
bobblehead.
the early days
Yeah,
of
but
the
it would be
space
kind of
program,
claustrophobic.
and it's still true today.
I guess
Um,
that depends on your
We
personality
also
more
have
than
non-military
anything.
people such as myself, so we take a
Yeah.
lot of scientists and
Although the
engineers
tight
that
helmet
are not
there,
affiliated
I would
with the military.
imagine is for
As we look outside
more
at the
flexibility.
launch pad at,
But those neck pads they have
39A
in right
for
now, those
those who
don't
don't
really
know,
allow
this is a
for it.
very vast place.
They showed footage of the
Share
astronauts
land
at the
with
base of the
a
tower when they were loading them in.
140,000 acre
They had to tilt
Lebanon
their entire
wildlife
torso up
refuge,
just to
so
look at the
that's why when you're
capsule.
looking there, it's just so dark and so much of the picture. Even when we're a far distance
Although I
from
imagine
the
that's more
launch
for
pad, it's
protecting their necks
an area
during
that has
launch
been
from the
preserved for
G-forces.
a very
Yeah.
long time, for decades going
It
back. Since it is Native
it needs to
American
protect
Heritage Month here in the month of November,
more
we should mention that this was land
more
once
just
occupied by indigenous
it's a little bit
tribes,
different type
including
of
the Ais
philosophy. I'm pretty
and
sure
the Turup.
comfort isn't a
A
priority
quick history
numero
of
uno.
NASA's commercial crew program. It all began
I
with
mean,
the first
comfort's probably got to
successful
be
and
up there
historic test
at least
flight
a little
with
bit.
NASA astronauts called Demo
Yeah, that's
2.
also true. but-
After that, NASA certified SpaceX
I
to
mean, I
fly
do remember
astronauts
that a
directly
massive
to and
issue
from
with the old
the
NASA
International
suits is
Space
that they were
Station.
designed to
And the
be
first
like
rotational mission
more
was,
comfortable
of
in
course,
0G.
drum roll
So
please,
this
Crew
part
1.
right now where they're
And I
waiting
am
That
for
was a
back.
big
fueling
deal
and all
because
that was
really, it was the
absolutely
first
miserable
time
for
in more
them.
than a decade since Space Shuttle retired for longer duration space flights. This was the first one. You were on it, and you flew up there and spent
I gotta
almost
say,
6
ever
months
since
in
moving to an
space.
iPhone for motion capture,
And we
it
make a big
hasn't
deal
done
about this being the
hasn't
first
done nearly
capsule
the same
because
things that
even though it has made it
doing
to space, there's still things
webcam
that
capture
we
has
need
done.
to see how
Where
it
if I
changes
move in just the right
during
way,
its time on orbit.
all
So
of a
we're
sudden I'm
constantly looking
either
at its systems
face
and
against the
making
glass
sure that
or
everything is working
I
properly
run
so
real
we can
far
keep
away
crew
real
up there,
fast.
as long as we need them.
And a lot of
I
what
haven't
you
had much of that
experienced
issue.
in
But then again, I have
flowed
smoothing turned all
back
the way up.
into improvements that were
I
made
feel
to
like
the brand new spacecraft.
Absolutely.
I'm
That
the only
reminds
one
me.
that
Feedback, just as we did, we give
One thing I
Are
have
you
to do.
using
comments and what we
VTube
call
or
lessons learned
PRPR
and
Live?
maybe some suggestions on how to make things a
VTube
little
Studio.
bit better.
I'm using VTube
I guess
Studio. I
there's
have
a
used
SpaceX is
PRPR
good
Live.
and NASA is good, and they try and
I guess
throw
there's
those improvements in whenever they can.
A lot
Or is it
improvements
the
made in this
settings for
capsule. We've been hearing a little from the
the
crew
model
on
lock,
board
I guess?
Dragon, currently
So
strapped
you
into their
just
seats. As you
stay
can
in your
see there,
place
helmets
in
and
one
hip
place
leveled so
instead
they
of
can
like
look below them. They have completed their
running your body
communications and suit
to
leap
left and
checks.
right.
They're able to follow all
I'm
the
right
Yeah,
with
systems
you
well,
that are
there.
still ahead on
the
those
settings
displays
for,
that
or
are
the
telling us.
variable that's
Just
used
above
for
them,
your
they
body
gain
movement
insight
left and
into
right is
all
the
of the
same as for
Dragon
your
Falcon
turning
9
left and right.
systems
So if you
as
look
they
Uh-huh.
left,
proceed and
your
march
entire body
Yeah,
moves
yeah,
ever
left.
so
So
slowly
I
yeah,
towards
yeah,
disconnected
launch.
those.
And then
yeah. Same with me.
T-minus
Mm.
1 hour and
I'm
5
right
minutes.
right there
Let's go
with
ahead and
you,
check in for a status
Speedster.
update from John I.
Well, that's primarily because
John?
I was a little lazy and I just couldn't be bothered to make the switch to VTube Studio.
Oh,
Yeah, whatever works.
Yeah. Also, like, the software gives me a headache, especially since a big portion of it isn't translated. So I just figured I'll just stick to what I have. I know it.
That just leaves the crew on board
To each their own.
If you can get it to work, then you're unassailable in your position.
I mean, for me, especially with Pulsar 2.0, when that comes out in my re-debut in like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 days.
Oh my goodness, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I have like VTube Studio set up to my Stream Deck, and you know I'm able to just like easily go through my without having to have any like hotkeys bound. I'm able to just like switch between assets and whatnot. It's really good. I love it.
So,
but that's me, just me.
I noticed that your 2D model right now is your new one gonna? I mean 3D. Is your new one gonna be 2D?
Yes. In fact, it's made by the same artist as well. I chose to do to go from a Vroid to a 2D model just because I feel like there's certain things that a 2D model does really well, and there's other things that like a 3D model does well, but I kind of wanted to lean towards the 2D aspect. But
It's a lot harder to make the 3D models look less uncanny.
That is the one thing, though, I will say, is that Vroid has come a long way, and I have seen people do what I think is miracles in that program. Like, I'm like, this almost looks 2D, but it isn't. Oh, man.
Yeah, having 3D and a 2D at the same time is always invaluable. Always very nice to have.
I think also the one thing though I will miss with not using a Vroid is I have a program called TIFA. I can't remember what it means, but it allows my audience, if they wish to, they can throw stuff at me.
Oh,
and
I've
it literally
seen that on Chibi-Doki.
it literally makes it literally makes the model like react. Also, someone just threw a box on my head.
For me, having a 3D would be really hard because I have armor, right? So those like, I guess you'd say, yeah, the shinglings and the just armor is really hard to do in 3D for a reasonable like time and price.
Well, I find fabric harder to do than armor. At least armor is stiff.
I guess
rigid.
Well,
Sorry. I had
fabric.
there we go. I had to deal with something real quick here. Sorry.
All right. Yeah, the Vroid, as far as I understand it, it's kind of like sculpting, depending on what you go with, you can like trim certain pieces and whatnot. Like for example, my base body is just like this black, it's just like totally black. Meanwhile, like I can't remember what Mia used for it, but like it's a very bulky looking clothing that she used. But yeah, and then on top of that, if you want to get really complex with it, you could take it and throw it in. Well, it's not really that complex, but you can put it into Blender. Put like slap some pauldrons on it from I don't know, maybe some 3D modeling place, and then boom, there you go. You make sure you attach those. I kind of learned a little bit of this stuff myself from like when I did Vroid not Vroid models, VR chat models back in the day. But like they've made it so easy to where it's just like beep boop click 20-minute tutorial and you're good. That's just me though.
I think that's pretty crazy how far it's come in
oh gosh,
a extraordinarily short time.
which concluded in 2013.
I never expected VTubing to boom as big as it did.
Well, when you have isolation and people with a lot of time on their hands, that's what happens. And then, you know, all of
Well, it
these
all
coders
started in
going out.
2019.
Yeah, that too. Well, it's been around for a bit. Keys in AI's been. I don't know,
Keys
2018.
and I's been
I can't
around since
remember.
like 2017, as I understand
Yeah,
it.
2017. And so it's just recently that the technology, you know,
Yeah, but
the
you didn't really
software
see the
basically.
saturation until like last year.
More
Yeah.
more than anything, it's recently it's crossed the seas. If I understand it as well as I think I do.
Well, I think most of the programs I've used originate in Japan.
Yeah.
And Matthias Maurer
Yeah,
will
that's
also be a mission specialist
pretty
for
much same
Crew-3,
here.
working
I've
with the
followed
commander and
VTubers
pilot
since
to monitor the spacecraft
1833.
during the dynamic
Oh
launch
well.
and
As far as
re-entry
models
phases of the
go, I
flight.
think
you a Time
if
Lord,
I'm ever going to
Coyote?
update my model, I might update my model. But if I'm going to get a new model, I am going to commission someone for it. I don't
Oh,
want to
yeah.
have to draw a whole new one again.
Vroid, though, pro tip, Vroids do tend to be more. Sometimes tend to be cheaper. Also, we are 1 hour to go into until launch.
Oh yeah.
We're waiting for
We're
the.
getting close to.
Yep.
It's getting close to time to arm the LES as well as start tanking operations.
I can't get over the fact they're just sitting there for like 2 hours just waiting.
That's
Well,
like
they
this
do have
game.
to get in there and make sure that they're in and everything is working as it ought to before they start really, you know, putting the business end, getting the business end ready, which of course is putting fuel, putting propellant in there.
Actually, come to think about it, they don't have a timeline on their stream, do they?
I don't think they do.
That's usually they have like a timeline thing that says, "Hey, we're doing this at this time." All they have is the ticker. Interesting.
Yeah, but at this point, I think we already know that it's about. I think they'll actually put it up there once they hit about the 40-minute mark when they start tanking operations. So, but yeah, we're less than an hour away until the actual lift off.
Maybe after all those delays, they'd think that putting a timeline down there is a little too overconfident.
I've seen ULA do that a lot too.
Oh, my internet.
You know, say what you will. These new spacesuits are pretty slick.
Oh gosh, yes, I love it. So, a fun fact for any new viewers and our collaborators here: those were actually designed by a costume designer who had worked with Marvel Studios on their costumes. So, like, these are superhero costumes.
Really?
Yeah,
They're
in
remarkably
more ways than
tame.
one. In this case, it's going to keep them alive in case of a loss of cabin pressure. And it's not a case of a mask will drop down and you'll put that on there. You actually have to wear that thing, or otherwise you're dead.
Well, you get like what 13 seconds until death
Maybe.
in a vacuum.
About
Well, once I
about
mean, it
yeah.
depends on how quickly their air goes away. Like for example, Soyuz 11, I think it didn't take all that long, but it still took long enough where it took time for them to realize, oh crap, we are losing our air because our air equalization valve opened way too early.
Yeah.
When we get to about T-minus 40 minutes, the
I'm gonna have to look up where I heard the 13-second rule. Might have just been something that my dad said absentmindedly.
This is the automated system in place that can fire the 8 Super Draco thrusters on Dragon to quickly separate the crew from
I do know you survive longer if you void your lungs before the depressurization.
Yeah, because what happens is when you get depressurization and there's air in your lungs, boom, there go all your alveoli, and your lungs are pretty much shot to death.
Making their final preparations as well as some close-up views of those suits. The teams have
be
often
right back.
described the suits as an
Sure.
extension of the Dragon
We'll be here.
spacecraft,
It
almost
is
a
kind of sad
spacecraft
that, you
inside
know,
of a suit.
the the road to, you know, space flight and where we are now has been paved with a lot of sacrifices, you know. You look at the Soviets, you look at us, and just, you know, the rules we've come up with to keep those astronauts as safe as possible, as well as even in, you know, while in orbit. Some of the incidents that have happened, you know, fires and whatnot. So like even like the smallest little thing that happens, they'll call an emergency. Like when was it Soyuz that started to, I know Zvezda was the one that started to run it out of started to make ISS nearly go out of control. But then I think Soyuz
I don't
did
think it
as
was
well.
Vesta. I think it was Nauka.
Nauka, that's who it was. Nauka. That's the module where it was just like, I'm gonna start my thrusters, and the Russians are like, wait, what? Why are you thrusting? How long did it take them to realize what was going on? I can't remember.
Don't
like 10
know
minutes?
offhand. I'd have to go look it up.
Yeah, that was a bit crazy.
But apparently it was it was very it was gradual enough where the astronauts aboard didn't realize what had happened.
Yeah, and they're like, wait a minute.
Do her best to answer your question. And by the way, speaking of social, Kennedy is hosting a virtual NASA social.
Yeah, I mean, soon they're going to be moving that away from the vehicle.
Messages, pictures, and videos with their fellow space fans. And we want to share now.
Oh, one of my viewers says it only took 3:45 for them to blame NASA though. Record time. 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Or 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
No, I think it was 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Oh, there's the commander of Inspiration 4, Jared Isaacman.
Mm-hmm.
Is he one of the veterans?
And the pilot of Inspiration 4.
And I just want to wish Crew-3 an awesome liftoff as they head to the International Space Station.
Hi, Raja, Tom, Matthias, Kayla. Hank's here just to wish you well on your.
Here's a neat little question for you guys. When space travel becomes commoditized, will it be regarded more along the lines of air travel or sea travel?
Your name on it is a feeling like no other.
I don't know, a lot of the...
I just want to say I'm so excited for all
Well,
of you.
if you look at all the science fiction, it would be sea travel.
Yeah, jargon-wise, it's always been sea.
Yeah, a lot of the language, a lot of the lingo that's been used is nautical.
And they tend to use maritime law and whatnot. Like, for example, well, who was it? Skylab. I think it was Skylab 4 literally mutinied, you know, and was like, okay, we're turning off the radio click.
Can you really?
Yes.
Yeah, because I guess they were being worked too hard.
Yeah, they were working them too hard, and they're just like, you know, we don't want to listen to NASA. Poor guys, they never like, they were actually tried for it, and like, you know, and you know, they found them not guilty, but those astronauts never flew again, unfortunately. But hey, because of them, they, you know, the astronauts do get reasonable rest periods where they can do whatever. VTuber in space when?
Yeah, so
what?
the
I am in
first thing,
space.
The most important thing is to do well in school.
How would? Oh my gosh! If they were, you know, if there was actually like a VTuber on the ISS, they'd be like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" They'd be just floating around.
How would they prove it though?
Ooh, shoot, you're right. Dang it, that is a problem.
Well, that would be the only way. Or face
full body V-Roid tracking on the ISS. Let's go.
We're talking about the whole notion of something like a stowaway, right? There's actually something of that concept.
Yes, there's was it Netflix? Who did that?
Well,
the
if you
stowaway.
stowed away on a spaceship, then the ship wouldn't reach its destination. The
I
fuel
actually-
is allotted so specifically.
Well, yeah, that's actually the premise of this. Well, the oxygen was the premise. Because they were the most incompetent. These guys were the most incompetent like space program I've seen. But what is it? Yeah, it was a movie called The Stowaway. I think it was on Netflix. And yeah, the whole premise was they were going to Mars, and they were on. They couldn't come back to Earth. They were on like a, you know, a straight course to Mars, and with this ship that would have a that would be on Mars for 2 years, and then it would come back around. The problem is that they barely made it to orbit because they had extra weight, and they didn't account for it. And then they realized, oh wait, we're not going to have enough oxygen because something happened on the ship and whatnot, and so one of them would have to, either sacrifice themselves or be thrown out in airlock. And the people on there were like, some of them, there was like a crew of 3 and now a crew of 4. And they were like, we should just yeet the stowaway. Or one person was like, they should just yeet the stowaway. So they were trying so hard and ended up, yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything, but really good program. Especially the fact that they had artificial gravity on this thing. Because they were using the expended booster as like a cantilever. And it was just, spinning around and around. But
yeah, there was a movie about a mission to Mars where the ships were designed like that.
That's the one I'm talking. I think, yeah, that's the same one.
No, in this one it was 2 ships, and there was only 1 person in each ship.
Oh,
and the issue was
okay.
water.
Gotcha.
I think we're starting to get close to where they're going to start pulling the arm away. Just a minute.
Last comment on that though, like the one major gripe I had with it was just how incompetent the space program was, and I'm like, really, what kind of shoestring budget are you idiots on?
Well, if space travel gets boring, I mean, that's like kind of what happened with Apollo 13.
10 years ago, we flew out the space shuttle.
It would be the same shoestring budget NASA's already on.
Oh, jeez.
I don't think NASA's had a large budget since they landed on the moon. Or
No,
shortly
they've
after
never
they
had a
landed on
large
the moon.
budget.
Well, because like when they landed on the moon, they're like, okay, we beat the Ruskies. All right, we're good. Pick up some. That was one of the things in from the Earth to the Moon that they commented on. They were like, okay, what can we do to beat the Russians? Okay, we could go to the moon. And everyone's like, go to the moon. That's like 20 years out. What are you talking about?
Moon rocket, there it is.
And they were also saying that if they launched a man to the moon before the Russians, that would be it. They'd be like, okay, we win. Yay, space race. It's over.
And now that the rocket and
but yeah, now it's like
it stands at
that's why they had to push so much money into NASA.
Aren't we supposed to be going back to the moon pretty soon?
Yes, Artemis, which is also really is very expensive and.
In fact, speaking of, there's SLS right there.
And what do we have to get through?
And the interesting thing about the SLS vehicle, Orion, they're getting technology from ESA by way of what used to power the ESA, European Space Agency. Basically, they had the ATV, the Automated Transfer Vehicle, that was launched by Arianespace. The propulsion module for that, which acts as a sort of a service module for it, is going to be part of the SLS system, part of Orion. Basically, that's what gives it electricity as well as other stuff like gases, fluids, and stuff like that.
For a launch, hopefully in February.
Fantastic. Calvin Manning, thank you so much. And by the way,
yeah, the automated transfer vehicle hasn't been in use for a very long time, and that was basically what they did was that was the European version of what of the American Cargo Dragon, the Russian Progress, and the Japanese have supply vehicles there. Okay, I think I'm gonna turn this up here.
At this time, we have completed all checks on the Falcon 9 and the Dragon spacecraft. We're also checking with the Dragon mission director to make sure that they are ready to go.
You're going to get a go-no-go poll here.
Listen for that launch director to come up. Now, we have been checking, as I said, with the Dragon mission director, also NASA launch manager, to make sure they're ready. Now you can see on the screen right now, Falcon 9 on the pad, crew access arm alongside the Dragon capsule. Earlier, you saw the vehicle assembly building during that previous interview. The Falcon and Dragon launch team, as well as key members of NASA, are in the Launch Control Center, which is just adjacent to the vehicle assembly building. And as you saw earlier, if you were with us, they've got a view straight towards Pad 39A through the large windows of Firing Room 4. Now, going back to the current screen view, you can see the crew access arm. That arm, once we finish the readiness poll and instructions to the crew, or instructions to the launch
attention
team.
on countdown net.
And here it comes.
The poll is complete.
Here we go.
Teams have pulled go
Yep.
for propellant load and launch. And stand by for hold
SpaceX
and
launch
escape
director
protocol.
says poll is complete. And he's
For
preparing to
non-urgent,
brief the
no
hold
go
and
conditions, brief
safety
CE or
protocol.
LD, and they will approve aborting the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed to the launch abort auto sequence. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off, relying solely on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Operators advise the launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring per Dragon manual escape flight rules. For those in Firing Room 4 here at KSC, in the event of a fire alarm, operators noted below 56.80 will remain at their post while the alarm is evacuated. In the event that personnel safety is threatened, evacuate to south-facing emergency exit leads directly outside. Launch control at this time, you may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
Just over T-minus 44 minutes. We're going to send it back to
There we
Daryl
go.
and the team at Kennedy
They
Space
are
There we
Center.
go.
Get
for
ready to
prop
move the
load.
crew access arm.
And they're
right,
about ready to
Finally
move
happening.
the crew access arm away. And after that, they're going to arm the launch escape system on the vehicle and then start tanking operations.
And counting, and
Correct.
just got some.
Retraction has started.
And there is the retraction.
Just about there it goes.
shot
There
at
goes the crew
There we
access
go.
arm.
Moving.
Mm-hmm.
It's not moving. The crew access arm is.
Is moving away from it. Yep, and you can see that from inside the Dragon as well.
After so many delays, it's finally
There
a
it
go.
goes.
Yee.
Yep.
When you're in the capsule, can you see that?
You can. You have windows that are at pretty much your foot level, and you can see a little bit out. So you do see that moving away, and once it's gone, you know it's just you and the rocket.
That's a real
There's the camera pointing
kind of gives
directly
you
at
a
Dragon.
distinct impression of a
View
nose
there.
cone
You
there
see the
with the
strong
window
back
positioning
at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
and the shape of the
That
capsule.
is a fantastic view.
indeed. And Space Launch Complex 41 also has crew access on there too, and that's where Atlas,
And this crew access
Atlas
arm
Centaur, and then
can
soon
move
thereafter,
faster
once
than
the
it's doing
E4s
right
are starting
now
to be in
under certain
production,
circumstances,
the
right?
Vulcan
Absolutely.
Centaur
If
will
it,
launch.
needs to go back to
Yep.
being up against the capsule, it can move quite quickly, actually.
Okay, the arm is pulling away, and
It's
then
just, not
we
too
should
long
be
ago,
hearing
about
something
an
over
hour
the
ago
net
that we
talking
saw the
about
astronauts
the arming
walking
of the
down that
launch
very
escape
crew
system or
access
launch
arm.
abort system.
Now it is rotating away from the rocket.
Just one more step closer to launch. An important milestone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We are 42 minutes and counting.
I'm enjoying just watching the various parts of the launch pad go by
Yes.
as we look out that.
Yeah, you don't
that
often
moving arm.
get that view, so
No.
it is might as well soak it in while we've got it.
There's nobody inside that arm. There's nobody on the pad. The only people who are there are the 4 astronauts inside that SpaceX Dragon capsule.
That will be the 40 longest minutes of your life.
Oh
See the
gosh. Yeah.
water
Yep.
deluge
Point of
system
no return,
Not to
baby.
mention,
to the left.
not to
out
mention, you
the,
have to worry about
opening
just
there to
make
the
sure
white
that
room.
everything's going okay in terms of tanking, because they just completed
And we
retraction.
just heard the call out that the crew access arm has completed its retraction away from the rocket. And so up next,
Dragon SpaceX, you are go
We
for
wanna do a
Section
little-
7 of 4.100. Close visors and arm the launch escape system.
That's another thing they do, yeah, because they will be going up considerably
Arming the launch escape
even
system.
from the
While
pad,
we await
they need to
that,
make sure that they have their they need to make
Oh,
sure
that
that their
sounds like a great
visors are
idea.
closed and O2 flow in
Michelle Stone
going. I
asks,
think.
as an astronaut, what moment does it become real that you are about to launch to space?
Has anyone else
You know,
seen the
Michelle,
Don
it's
Knotts movie,
right
The
about
Reluctant
now,
Astronaut?
So you know everything else has
No,
happened.
I
can't
can't
say
say
I
I
have.
have.
And this is
Oh
really
my
the
goodness, I can't believe you
final
guys.
bit before
That's
you
such a
launch
good
into
movie.
space. So anything had gone
So,
wrong
What
previously. The
what
access
movie?
arm was there, and you could just
The
exit the
Reluctant
capsule.
Astronaut?
Now it's just you and the
Reluctant
rocket.
Astro.
And arming the launch
I don't
escape
know.
system, as we just heard
It
that before,
sounds
is
extraordinarily
major
obscure.
milestone.
It is.
You
It
know,
was like
if for
it's
some reason
shakiest gun in the
something were to
West
happen,
levels
that's
of
how you're getting
obscure,
off
except not as
top that
famous as
rocket.
That
shakiest
is
gun in the
correct.
West.
If something happens, if it's detected on
Oh.
the
So,
ground
so
or by
basically,
system
this
or
guy
with
who has a
97,
morbid
huh?
fear of
that Falcon
heights
9,
is
it will
his dad
engage
gets him
that
a job
launch
at
escape
NASA, and he's
system,
like,
and
"My
that crew
son's
will
gonna
go
be an
shooting off that
astronaut."
rocket.
But the NASA guy calls the kid, and he says, "Yeah, you're gonna be a
Question
janitor
now?
at the
Haven't been doing so
mission
well.
control."
Question.
I love answering questions.
Well,
And
excellent.
and he's all
Okay.
happy
Are there
because he's afraid of
pre-launch
heights.
rituals and activities that the crew
Well,
go through before launch?
You know, we do
this is
have
happening in like
some,
what the
I would
70s,
say traditions,
and
and
Russia,
it's kind of
it comes
interesting
out,
now that we're in
uh,
the commercial
did
launch escape
a
system is
did
verified
a
on.
space mission that was manned by a dentist.
Okay, launch escape system is
They're like,
armed.
"Yeah, our capsule's so advanced, even a dentist could man it."
So
And
we
so the
have
people at NASA get the idea,
traditions
we're
that
gonna
come
make
from
something
the
that's so
Apollo days.
advanced
We've got
even a
traditions
janitor
that
could man it.
we actually experienced
And
on
so
the
they put
Oh.
him
station
in.
when
They
we're
put
flying with
him in
Soyuzes,
the
and so we sort
next
of
capsule into
combined a
space.
few.
What
A
the
lot of them,
heck?
as you've seen earlier, involves the crew sticking their stickers
That's
on
the
various places.
Yes.
goofiest plot I think I've ever
Everywhere we
heard.
can.
Everywhere we can. We want people to know we were here.
I could probably do you better, but they're about
And
to
one more
launch, or they're
question
getting
for you,
close to
Shannon.
launch right now.
As we
I can only
await the
summarize so many
loading of
movies so
propellant
quickly.
into the Falcon
Don't we
9
have
rocket.
39 more minutes?
Hey NASA, while
Oh
watching
yeah,
the
they do.
launch of
They're saying
Crew-3,
something
I
about the
noticed
mirrors on
astronauts
there.
have a
That's
little
another thing I
mirror
wanted to
on
say
their
when we
suits on their
earlier when
left
we
arm.
were talking about how
What are they
comfy the
for?
suits might
Yes.
be.
Good
They
eye to
can't
notice that.
rotate
Good
their
eye.
heads.
Good eye. Yes, that mirror
No, I
is
was talking
actually
about that when they
will
were
let you
climbing the
inspect
tower.
your
They were
spacesuit
stopped
to
at the
make sure
bottom of the
everything is
tower to
fine.
look up
So
at the
once you're in
capsule,
the
and they had to
spacecraft by
tilt their
yourself, if
entire
you
body
open your
upward.
visor and you need to shut it,
The,
you want to make sure
That's
they
also
have,
why they have the
that your hair is not
and because of
crossing the
that
boundary and would
rigidity,
interrupt
that's the
the
reason why they
seal
have the
that
mirrors.
is necessary to keep
they're
that
gonna
pressure on
have
the
the
inside. So they use
the
that to make
stiffest
sure
neck in
their
history.
spacesuit
Very
is
true.
in perfect condition.
How about that?
Actually,
I hadn't even noticed it.
you said these
It's
were made
wonderful
by a
to get these
costume
questions,
designer.
From
Mm-hmm.
the viewers.
Well,
Yeah,
they were
I know.
designed by a
watching
costume
because
designer.
they're looking so
They
Yeah.
probably
good.
had
Well, looking
engineers go
closely,
in
and
and
it's great that
make it
people
work.
are picking up those
I think
details.
it's
Let's
interesting.
take another one then, since we've got,
It's
some great
the
questions.
reality of a lot of space
Can
stuff
you
is
keep your
becoming more and
spacesuit
more
after the mission?
Oh,
how it
man,
looks
I
in
wish
the
I could keep my
movies.
spacesuit. I don't know where I would put it.
Does
but,
art imitate
unfortunately,
life,
we're
or
not
does
allowed to
life
keep our
imitate
spacesuits.
art?
You couldn't stop
Oh,
them
I
from putting in the
think
foyer?
the
I suppose
people
I
that
could.
are
I would
here
like for
did
tickets.
watch Star Wars
But
and
you know
Star
what's
Trek.
interesting is if
They
you
got
can keep
inspired
the
when they
case
worked there, and they
made
took
exactly to
inspiration
your
from the
specifications, so
the
Yeah,
things
almost
they
we're
love.
okay with it.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, actually, after a
I
flight,
really
the
wish I could
spacesuits
speak
go into
since you
rotation
mentioned
for
Star Wars. I
training.
wish I
And
could see
so
the
at
original
this moment,
1977,
Samantha
1980, and
Frey, who is about
1983
my
prints
size, is
of
using my spacesuit for her
Star
training
Wars, Empire
while her
Strikes Back,
spacesuit is
and
being built.
Return of the
okay,
Jedi,
so they really
respectively.
are used
Yes.
Oh,
again,
without all
but
the new
not for
CGI
spaceflight. They
elements
go
that have been
into
added?
a life of training.
Exactly.
right.
Although the
Great
one
questions,
the one where they
folks. We
just
really appreciate
spruced up the
these
special
are-
effects
these are some
in
good ones.
'87, that's one thing. But when they started adding stuff from the prequel series, that's where I draw the
We're
line.
getting a call out
Ah.
as we prepare for
Lucas, get the
propellant
hell
loading.
out of that editing suite, please.
See, people say that the first three movies were so good
They have their visors
because
closed, so
they had
they're
Lucas on a
ready. They have
leash.
them closed before
Yeah,
launch.
that's
They
that's
will be
exactly
did.
what it was.
activated in
Yep,
case-
exactly.
Yeah, activated in
He was
case
just too
of
Alright.
famous for it
malfunction, they will be safe.
in when he made the prequels. those.
I guess it's Star Wars 4, 5, 6.
Another question from
Yes.
social media.
I suppose
believe,
I have a
like,
confession
it's
to
locked
make.
into
I've
the
never
thing
seen
itself.
Star Wars.
Oh, that is such an interesting feeling.
You
for
won't,
Not
Mike?
yet.
Of course, I
Oh,
Not
jeez.
yet.
first
Not
time
yet.
on the Soyuz spacecraft.
I've been meaning to for
we
like
got
months. I
into
just haven't
space.
had
Well,
the
yeah, you better
opportunity.
do it
Cut off.
before
To me, it
Disney
felt like we
retcons
were
something else and be
taking
like,
a
oh,
step
that's
back,
not
like I was
canon anymore. That's
forward in my,
Legends.
in my heart.
Like, haha.
I don't think they'll do that to
Why? I
the
don't
to
think
the
we were,
mainstay
but that's what it
movies,
felt like.
No.
And not too
unless
long
it's
after
something
you
they
I
produced
mean-
that they've already done.
Technically, yes, they have. They changed the name of Slave,
really depends on your profile.
of
So what
Slave
Crew
One
Dragon
to
can do
the
is what we
Fire
did
something.
on our flight up.
I
It
can't
also
remember.
had a 22-hour
Because Slave is a inappropriate name for a spaceship. It's like,
on the
okay.
Dragon, and then they will
Did,
have
was the
complete
name of
training
the
before
of
they do the final
Jango
landing.
Fett's spaceship ever explicitly said out loud in the movies, though?
Like to sleep in
Think?
space?
Maybe?
Like,
I don't
what
think
happens?
so.
Does
But
does your head
still.
kinda, what does your head do? And how does it
Fire
feel
Holder or whatever it
not being
was,
against anything?
was like the first one of the series, and then people
Well, they
like
can't get rid of the
argue.
merchandise.
Yeah, and people argue that technically, you know,
about the first month, I would wake up in the middle
Boba
of the night,
Fett
I
or
feel like I
Jango
needed
Fett
to
or
turn
whoever
over,
Fett
but of course,
wouldn't
that's something
actually
you do
buy
avoid
like
in
the
space. So
first,
that's just
you
part
know,
of
of its
adjusting
kind.
to learning how to
You
sleep
know,
in
they'd be
space.
smarter than that, because when you buy the first of something, there's a lot of kinks in it, especially with spacecraft. You know, things that need to be ironed out
You have a sleeping
in
bag
like
on
the
space
second
station. You have a
iteration.
sleeping bag that's inside your crew quarters, and that sleeping bag is attached
So-
to the wall. So you sort of
What
float
if the
inside
what
your
if the
sleeping
Slave
bag,
One
which is
was a
attached to
modified version of an older model, like the indentured servant one?
Or surf one.
for sending them in. They were wonderful. We enjoyed them, and Shannon did a great job.
Or unpaid laborer one?
From prop load.
Propellant load.
Volunteer worker one.
All right, that was the
Volunteer
call out for
worker.
propellant
Begun.
load.
We heard the call out.
Yes.
This rocket is being loaded with propellant.
Yes, obviously another major milestone, and that is something that is very obvious to the crew. They can feel it loading into the tanks. It starts low down at the bottom of the rocket, but as
All right.
the
But speaking of Star
propellant
Wars,
gets, the tanks get more full.
for me
it's more
personally,
vibrations and louder. It
after
gets,
the
Yeah, you can hear that inside the capsule.
episode
definitely hear
4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, where they have
something big
George
getting ready to happen.
Lucas in there,
Well, we are
it
T-minus
was the
34 minutes
best.
and counting
But
away
after
from the
Disney
launch
take
of
it,
Crew Dragon's
and then
third flight with astronauts
episode
and the second for
7, 8,
2021. Today begins
9,
the next
and
6-month
then what?
rotation mission to the International Space Station.
Rogue One
The
is
launch escape
still
system
quite
is
good,
armed, as we
but
just
the rest
heard,
of it
which happened
after
just
Disney
before we have started loading
they
propellant
take the
onto
Star Wars
Falcon 9.
is
That propellant is now
for
flowing
me
into Dragon.
is
The Dragon
fuck as
capsule
shit.
was loaded with
Well,
its
you can just
propellant
generally
about a
see the
week and a
dip
half
in
ago,
cinematography in general in
what we call
across
Dragon
all of
fuel.
Hollywood
And in order
when
to fly,
Steven
Dragon
Spielberg
needs a
retired.
fuel and an oxygen.
Yeah.
So, for
Exactly.
its fuel, we use monomethylhydrazine or
Even though
MMH,
like
and nitrogen tetroxide or NTO
I'm
for
looking
the
at the
oxidizer.
Wikipedia,
Together,
episode
these propellants feed the
7
Draco engines that must
and
maneuver
episode
Dragon on
9,
orbit, as well as the 8
even though
Super
they
Draco
have
engines that would
J.J.
power the launch
Abrams,
escape system in an
it's not
abort scenario.
it's not good
Again,
as
fueling.
George
It is flowing.
Lucas.
Well, J.J.
means the
Abrams
8
was being
Super
led
Draco
by the
engines
nose in
inside
a lot
Crew
of different
Dragon
ways
are
in
ready.
regards to the
If
production of
needed,
those movies.
they can
Oh,
launch
yeah.
the
Exactly.
capsule away from the Falcon 9 rocket in an instant.
Led
But-
by
Be
the
any
nose.
kind of emergency
Led by
associated
the
with rocket
nose.
orbital
It's
path.
a good phrase for being,
The NASA
you know,
and SpaceX teams have trained extensively for
uh,
exactly that type of.
there's no tactful way
emergency.
to say this. Pussy whipped.
So we'll send it over for now to SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've never
Operations update
heard
from John
such a saying before.
I have.
Well, the phrase comes from, you know how cows will have nose rings?
Ah, yeah.
That's for leading them around.
Yep.
You get led by the
Falcon
nose.
9 did begin propellant load on time at T-minus 35 minutes. You can see Falcon 9 on
The worst
pad,
thing
first
is
and
even
second
Disney
stages.
is not
They're being loaded with two liquid propellants. One is a fuel loaded into a
asking
tank at
George
the bottom
Lucas
of the
any
stage.
any
The other
like
is an
any
oxidizer that's loaded
suggestion
into a
or
tank at the top of
taking
the
him
stage.
as
The fuel that we're using
co-producer
for the
or
Merlin engines is a refined kerosene referred to
take
as
a
Well,
part.
well, counter argument to that.
Oxidizer loaded on each stage is
Indiana
gasified
Jones had
liquid
George Lucas in
oxygen
charge.
or LOX.
The Crystal
Indiana
Skull.
Jones?
Gasified is the term that we use
Yeah,
to
Indiana
describe
Jones
that
and the
we
Kingdom
keep
of the
it much
Crystal
colder
Skull.
than
He would,
typical for launch
George
Uh-huh.
Lucas
vehicles.
was in charge of that one.
That allows it to take up
All
less
right.
volume, and therefore we can put more liquid
That's fine.
oxygen onto the first and second stages.
Yeah, that's I
Now, to ignite
think
the fuel and
that's
oxidizer in
quite
the
good.
Merlin rocket engine, we use
But
that
talking about
favorite
Star
ignition
Wars,
fluid called T-Tub.
Jesus,
Now, when T-Tub comes
it's
into contact
it's
with oxygen,
literally
it'll
killed
burn,
Star
and that
Wars.
gives off a green-colored flame. Once we've got the flame going,
Yeah, I
we
think you
add the
can
kerosene
kind of end the
fuel into the
conversation
Merlin
at
engine chambers, and the engine ramps up to full power.
The sequel trilogy is
Probably
what
won't
you
be able to
get
see
when
the
you
green
make
flash
movies
of
by
ignition of the
committee.
9 Merlin engines on the
Mm-hmm.
first stage,
It's
but you may see it on the
bureaucracy's
second
baby.
stage engine when it ignites
Yeah.
Yep.
following stage separation
Meanwhile,
about 2 minutes and 48
we're
seconds
starting to
into
see
flight.
some of the liquid oxygen
We're
start
now
to
beginning to top
waft
off
off on
helium
the
into
on the
pressure
first
vessels
stage.
on both
They should be
stages.
Oh
starting
yeah.
the second
We've
stage
been
before,
quiet for most of
I'd
the
say a little bit
countdown, but
later in
now
the
we're going to
count, like
squeeze
right
that last
around
little bit in,
20
make sure that the
minutes.
tanks are fully up on the pressure vessels. We'll use that gas to pressurize
They
the
said there's
propellant
gonna be a
tanks in
green
flight.
flame.
The Merlin turbo
Yes.
pump
What
is
happens
pulling
is
propellant
at
out
the
of the
time of
stage, and we need
launch,
to take up or
they
make
start
up
to
that
flow
empty
all the
space
fuel and
with
fuel and
hot helium.
oxidizer into the combustion chamber.
Now
They
at
use
the very
they
top
use
of
a
the deck
substance
is the
called
Dragon spacecraft.
triethyl aluminum
The astronauts are
triethylborane,
monitoring their
which is
systems
what
while
is called
propellant is loaded into
pyrophoric,
the
meaning
Falcon 9.
it will
We heard him
immediately
talking
combust
about
in the
the
presence of
noises
oxygen.
of propellant loading.
The oxygen is not just the
In this
oxidizer, but
case,
also
the crew
the
training
what
in the
also
simulator also
the
includes
what
playback of
actually
sounds that
strikes
have been recorded in the
strikes
Dragon capsule during
basically
recent
causes it to
flights.
combust. It's not so
Good
much
news
like
on the range,
and it's
they are
used by
ready to
itself
support.
in the
They've been doing
atmosphere.
balloon launches.
Um,
They've been making
and
sure that
basically,
the
what
air
happens
and
is
sea
that
space
it's
is clear,
used
and they are go
to
to support
immediately light
launch.
things off, and they
Good
usually
news
carry
on the weather
extra
front. A little
in
while
there
back,
in order
the
to do
launch
the
weather
rest of
officer
the
came and
in order to do
reduced
the
the
rest of the
probability of
descent
violation
for
from 30
the
to
first
20%.
stage, and
The
also
biggest thing
probably
that we're going to be
additional
looking
for
for
any extra
is
relights on the second
precipitation, and
stage.
that's less than
Like for
10%.
example, if they need
The
to
wind speeds are low, probably
get ready, if they need to
5
say
miles per hour or
light the
less.
engine
So
again
everything is
to
actually looking
deposit
good.
several
Now, as a
satellites in
reminder,
different
we do
orbits,
have an instantaneous
as will
launch
probably
time for
happen
tonight's
a little bit
countdown.
later when they
So
have
from this point
they're going
on,
to be
if we
doing
hear
another
hold for any
rideshare
reason,
mission
we'll
probably
have
later
to
on this
stand
month.
down and target our backup launch opportunity tomorrow
Hmm.
night, which is about just under 24 hours from tonight's planned launch. But with that, everything's looking good, and we're going to turn it over to Jesse and Courtney for an overview of
How
what
long
comes
from
after
ignition are they
liftoff.
supposed to achieve orbit?
It's about 8.5 minutes.
Yep, 8.5 minutes.
For Crew-3, the astronauts' flight
What'll
to
happen
station
is the
will take about
first
22
stage will burn for about 2.5 minutes, and then all 9 of the Merlin 1D engines will shut down in an event called main engine cutoff or MECO. Then the staging will happen where the first and second stages separate, and the second stage will ignite and then continue uphill for another 6 minutes. And during that time, the first stage will do one of two things. It will either flip itself around by way of the what are called cold nitrogen gas thrusters, which are essentially spraying out nitrogen gas to reorient the vehicle as it's flying through the air. Well, not air, but through space. But in any event, it will be. Once they separate, it will continue to go up for a bit, and then after a certain bit of time, it'll start to fall down after hitting apogee, which is the highest point of its travel. And a lot of this stuff is what we're seeing here. Max Q is where it hits the denser portions of the atmosphere, throttle up, which will happen right after that. They'll throttle down before that. You might hear me say something like, or him say something like, the throttles are in the bucket. MECO is what they're talking about. I was talking about moments ago. Main engine cutoff, just a little more than 2.5 minutes after ignition. And then the stages separate. And then it'll go down to a drone ship that's sitting out in the Atlantic Ocean to go to touchdown. And there will be only one burn, I believe, during the course of pretty much any of these crewed missions. All the other stuff is handled by the Dragon. I mean, by the Dragon itself. And the other thing that could happen instead of the entry burn, which will still happen, is if they have to move to a different location, they may do or in the case if you go to the Cape, they do what is called a boost back burn, where they actually change the direction of the vehicle of the booster. And then they're talking about SECO 1, which is second engine cutoff 1. Which is right around the 8.5 minute mark, 8 minutes 45, and of course there's the landing. Then they do a landing burn once it gets close to the drone ship, which is about maybe a kilometer in altitude.
And while Falcon 9 first stage is landing, Dragon is preparing to
and then after they've been able to confirm that things are working, they'll separate the second stage from the they'll separate the Dragon from the second stage. After they've been able to confirm that it's not going in, it's not gyrating or doing, or it's not
behaving
it's not spinning
unpredictably
in any ways it should. And then after that, they'll open up the nose cone at the tip of the vehicle, On the Boeing vehicle, the nose cone at the tip is actually jettisoned.
Dragon's nose cone deploy sequence will begin. It will take roughly 4 minutes for the nose cone hooks to unlatch and open, exposing its guidance
4
navigation
minutes.
controls, or what we call
Interesting.
GNC, that will help the
Yeah,
Dragon
you
autonomously
can't do a lot of these. You can't do these things very suddenly because you could introduce a yaw moment if it's if the hinge is on the side. Basically, if you're looking out the front, the hinge will probably be vertical on the left-hand side. And basically, if it opens up too fast, it'll introduce a yaw moment that they'll have to compensate for with the Dracos. And you don't want to waste fuel on those things because those are also what they get you home too.
Houston is focused, and the critical systems on the station continue to function normally. The teams have verified the command path from the ground up through our constellation of communication satellites to the space station. Everything is nominal, and the station will be ready to receive Dragon tomorrow.
They just started tanking operations on the second stage.
Once the crew arrives at station,
Is solid rocket fuel still in use?
Yes, very much so. In fact, the next few, I think the next few Atlas Centaur missions will actually have Gem 63 motors on them. They're made by Northrop Grumman. In fact, there's one that's coming up, which is going to be in the 551 configuration. 5-meter fairing, which covers not just the payload but the Centaur stage as well. 5 SRBs that attach to the Atlas booster, and 1 RL-10 on the Centaur stage. And in fact, SRBs are also used on SLS, along with a tank that's pretty much designed like the shuttle's external tank. And then the SRBs on the SLS, I think, have an additional segment more than what's normally on the shuttle.
2 hours after docking.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for us here in Mission Control Houston. I'll send it back over to the team in Florida. Daryl?
All right, thanks, Sandra. We are back here at the Kennedy Space Center, circling about.
I'm going to need to step away
mock
one more
dragon
time.
behind us.
I'll be right back in a few minutes.
This lady right here flew on
We're
one,
good.
Crew-1, not too long ago, and had an incredible experience. 6 months up on the International Space Station.
Yes, 6 months. It's hard to believe that I've been home 6 months already, but
Here you are,
here
ready
I
to
am,
watch a launch.
watching the next one go.
T-minus 23 minutes and counting. And if you're just joining us,
Very,
we are ready
very soon.
for the third astronaut rotational flight and mission.
Yep, we
to
got
the
about
International
23
Space
minutes to
Station
go.
Under NASA's Commercial Crew program. Commander Raja Chari.
Could pop off to
Marshburn,
Crunchyroll and
Mission
catch an
Specialist
episode of
Caleb
something.
Aaron. There you see them. They are strapped in along with
I
Chase
guess it
Ballard,
would have to be
ready
space
to
themed.
fly inside Crew
Well,
Dragon
there's
Endurance.
a show
You
that's
can
called
see them
Space Brothers.
live as well as outside.
Oh yeah,
The
that is a
Falcon 9
thing, huh?
rocket fueling
Yeah.
operation is well
It's
Actually,
about
I
a little
admit-
sibling
The launch
rivalry
escape system
for getting
is
into
armed,
space.
and that means Crew Dragon is
Like,
ready to launch
uh,
itself away from the Falcon 9
a
rocket
sibling
in the case
rivalry?
of an emergency on the
Well,
pad
it's
or
as
after
far as I've
liftoff.
seen, it's grounded
So
in
far,
reality.
operations look
So like
and
these
sound
two
as
these two
expected,
brothers
and we are
as their
counting
kids.
down to that
One of
liftoff
them
at
says, you know, one day I'm
9:03
going to go to the moon, and the other one
Eastern
says, oh
Time.
yeah, well I'm the older brother, so one day I'm going to go to
You can
Mars.
see the steam
And
as it comes off, the
all grown up,
condensation
the
as
younger
it
one
comes off the
is an
rocket.
astronaut
Um,
set to
I
go to
drove
the
in
moon,
past
and the
launches
older
that
brother
as it
is
fills with
he
fuel,
designs
the
cars.
entire first stage
Oh.
begins to let
Yeah.
off,
And
it
the
kind of
the
gives you a
story follows
marker
the
of
older
exactly
brother
where
in
the
his
rocket,
uh,
they are. It's
How
almost
far
journey,
like
his
a
career of
Exactly.
becoming an astronaut.
Yep, because
Mhm.
the fuel and oxidizer
And it
are
has a
cryogenic,
stupid
they
number
are
of
extremely
episodes.
cold, and so you just see them
In
condensing the
fact,
air
one of
around it.
the
And of
episodes is
course, in
actually
Florida, we've got lots
voiced
of
by
moisture in
a
our air to condense.
We
and I
sure
believe
do.
a
There's
couple of
some
the episodes
onshore flow,
there's
weather
actually an
patterns that are
astronaut who
bringing,
voiced
moist air off the
one
Atlantic
of the
Ocean, and
characters.
so,
And in fact,
this liftoff, we should see a
he
lot of
actually
condensation coming off this particular rocket.
Oh, what is
The
it?
mission is
I
the
think it was Soichi
continuation of
Noguchi,
rotational
and
crew
he actually did an
at the
entire
space
like
station,
live
US soil
blog
on
series
private
on
rockets and
YouTube
spacecraft. This would
while
not be
he was up
possible
there.
without the
It was
success
so
of
cool.
NASA SpaceX Demo 2
Wow.
test
So
flight last
technically,
year, safe
ooh
delivery
yeah,
of
Soichi
Crew 1
Noguchi.
astronauts,
When was
Uh,
this? This
including
has to
co-host
be
Shannon
fairly
Walker,
recent.
to the
Oh
space
yeah,
station
it
last
was
fall for a long
I want to say about a year ago. He was on Crew-1. Yeah, Soichi Noguchi was on Crew-1, and before before he came back down, he came out with this beautiful video where he had a full-size, well, not full-sized Yamaha piano or electric piano, and he was playing a song, and like it was like a montage of like all the pictures he had, the things he did and whatnot. What's cool, what's funny too is like on the launch and whatnot, he was you know, it was not his first rodeo. He had been on both I believe Endeavor, or no, it was either Atlantis or Endeavor, Soyuz, and then now SpaceX Dragon. And you know, he was up there, and as like the other three were like so excited to go up, fist bumping and whatnot, he was literally sitting in his chair just sleeping. He was like, he also when exiting the SpaceX Dragon capsule, when they were on the ISS, he was like the last one out, and he pushed Baby Yoda out.
Well, I think I
It
remember
was so
seeing that,
cute.
too.
It was so adorable.
This guy seems like a legend.
He is a legend. Freaking Soichi Noguchi is a total legend.
He previously flew on the space
I heard that
shuttle
Kizuna was supposed to do something with Akihiko Hoshide during Crew-2's mission.
Oh.
When was that?
Really? Holy crap.
That was back in April, back in around on the April-ish side of things, I think.
VTubers in space. Okay, real talk. Here's something I've wanted to do for a while. Speaking of like VTubers in space and whatnot. So
yeah,
on the International Space Station, and I'd have to actually get my ham radio license if I did this, but on the space station, they actually have an amateur radio station where you can actually broadcast to as it like flies overhead. And so I was thinking one of these days to like take a radio and just transmit a bunch of VTubers' names, and then send, you know, so that you know, all those names are on like the International Space Station, you know, and then are bounced back to Earth. Oh, it'd be so cool.
That would be very.
I need to do a lot of research, and you know, that
You'd
legit.
probably be competing for the frequency though.
Yamamitsu, how you doing? Thank you so much for coming by.
Kinda, not really. It depends on what frequency it is.
Yeah, we're inside of 20 minutes, getting ready to launch Crew-3 aboard SpaceX's Dragon capsule Endurance, headed for the International Space Station.
The only problem with that too, though, is you have like a 10-minute window to do it, and then it's just like, oh, done. It's like
600.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to be like right under it too.
Yeah.
Traveling to space at the same time.
But it exists. You can throw up, you know, names.
He's landed on that big milestone.
I don't know how much, you know.
There was one thought experiment that I would do in high school, and it was
518. But don't quote me, I could be
orchestrating
wrong, but it's early 500s.
an into orbit launch that would cost less than $1 million.
Each of these 4 crew members will join Expedition 66.
And this is like maybe not full scale. It's literally just get something into orbit.
I mean, ride sharing exists now, and ride sharing is getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
As the commander?
Yeah,
especially with
nowadays with the small sat launchers now.
You've got, you know, Electron.
After the Soyuz crew left.
What the hell is it called?
Right.
Yeah, you've got Electron, you've got SpaceX, obviously, Firefly.
All right, let's go over to
you've got like all these aerospace companies that are just like building rockets because they're like, oh, this isn't actually that expensive to do.
Well, the fuel is the expensive part.
Oh gosh, yes. But you know, you're sharing the ride with other people, and if you find a ride share that has like the orbit that you want, or you don't even care about the orbit, you could just, you know, launch a thing up there. Like what would be cool? I had an idea for like a mini constellation where it's called MapX, and what it does is they're just like some sort of small sats or CubeSats that have like magnetometers on them, and they pulse down to, or they like pulse the oceans and whatnot, and they're looking for like they're basically metal detectors in orbit, looking for like, although I don't know how you penetrate the ocean, I don't know, I haven't figured that out yet. But if you were able
You
to
could use a
penetrate the
spectrometer.
ocean, yeah, if you were able to penetrate the ocean, you'd be able to find like shipwrecks and whatnot. And if you found those shipwrecks, you could sell like the map data and whatnot to like scavengers and like, you know, treasure hunters. Boom, there you go.
Yeah.
Just make sure your database is secure. People be like, oh hey, I can take this.
It happens
Yoink.
to every space flyer.
Yeah, like for example, they have location of the Titanic. We're just about to come up on T-minus 15 minutes, and that's where things are starting to really get crazy, because starting at about 7 minutes, that's when they start to do a lot of crazy things. Like, first of all, they do the strong back arm, they do the strong back pullback, as well as start chilling the 9 Merlin 1D engines in the first stage.
As you orbit the Earth every 90 minutes, and then, of course, the properties of microgravity in space. We're learning how to make new materials, new drugs. All of these things are going to come.
I don't know if
wow,
you saw this guy's face before he was talking, but he had the biggest smile in the world.
Yeah.
He was just so happy. Do you know who this guy is? He's like
I think, okay, hit me with something if I'm wrong, but I think he's the current administrator of NASA. I could be wrong though. Am I right?
Well, let's find out. We can listen to what they have
I'm
to
pretty
say.
sure.
And here we are now.
I could be wrong though. I still miss the previous administrator. He was the guy who really put the screws to Boeing and was like and you know, to NASA in general and be like,
right?
huh?
Jim Bridenstine, right?
Yeah, Jim Bridenstine. He put the screws to NASA and was like, look, if you guys can't get us to orbit, we'll go to commercial launches, whatever. More commercial launches.
NASA's going to be all over.
Privatize everything.
Yeah.
In fact, there was I haven't looked at the video yet, but apparently Scott Manley has a video up that's talking about the whole notion of privately built and operated space stations and why NASA might actually go to them in the future.
Well, because it's
It
cheaper.
would honestly be like better for everybody. The government wouldn't be spending so much money on stuff. Private businesses would boom, ideally.
And you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about the contractor sector and the whole you know, the whole idea. It kind of boils down back to the military-industrial complex and like, oh well, we'll just take our time with this. Where you put, you know, they own the product and whatnot, and they have to put it out to you. It's not like you give them money to do R&D. They need to do the R&D themselves, damn it.
Oh yeah. The only issue I can see is that at this point in time, space travel is so, I guess, precarious that it would require, or it would seem to many as if it would require an unnecessarily massive amount of regulation.
Well, yeah, that is the thing, is that NASA is kind of like the regulation board when it comes to this kind of stuff. Well, unless you're, you know, Blue Origin and you're just doing the, you know, up and down kind of things. But, you know, SpaceX works very closely with, you know, NASA. Same with Blue Origin and New Glenn. Which apparently actually has a oh, what is it? They just came out with New Glenn's what is it? The analog for it, to where they can just like test parts. They can part fit and whatnot. Meanwhile, you know, freaking SpaceX has been doing their rapid iterations of Starliner, or not Starliner, Starship. Yeah. Damn it! Why do they have to have names so close to each other?
Disassemblies of it.
A whole lot of rapid assemblies.
Okay, we're at T-minus 12 minutes.
Woo, let's go.
That stage is complete. Fuel loading is continuing.
The first stage is apparently complete. Now we're waiting on second stage to finish tanking.
and it will
Mhm.
finish up at T-minus 6 minutes. The densified liquid oxygen loading is also
But yeah,
underway.
But
actually, for
actually,
my audience,
for space
And we
traveling
began
is
loading liquid oxygen
well,
on
there
the
is
second stage about 5 minutes ago.
like
Now,
a
liquid oxygen
upside
loading
and
is the last one to
downside.
finish. We'll wrap up first stage at T-minus 3 minutes, second stage
Well,
Stand
at
that's
by.
all.
T-minus 2 minutes.
I'll be right back, guys.
Coming up, we're going to do final
Yep.
checks of various engine systems. Our thrust vector controllers are going to be moved. We call them TVC wiggles,
So I
where we
saw,
move the engines back and forth slightly.
yeah,
We'll
I
also
can
be moving
YouTube
throttle
that
valves on the engines to make sure that they are responding to commands
the
from the ground in
private
preparation
company
for flight.
would do
Dragon mission
space
director
travel
has
like
reported
this
their team
is
is working, no issues. We're
quite
going to hear from
benefit for
Dragon in a
Okay, I'll be
minute
back in
here
a
on the
minute or
countdown.
two.
Their comms
alrighty.
are complete. You
See
can
you
see
then.
the axis arm is retracted.
Uh-huh.
Launch escape system is
quite
armed.
benefit
The crew
for
is strapped in and they're ready to
the
go. They'll get their
country,
final
the
instructions in
human,
T-minus 10
mankind,
minutes.
because
They'll be
well, as
told
you
to
say,
configure
they
their
do the
displays
research
for launch.
themselves,
That setup will give the crew insight
etc.,
into how the
etc.
launch is proceeding
But the
and provide
downside
them constant
is
updates on vehicle health.
since
T-minus 5 minutes will be in terminal count, and Dragon will go to internal power, and we'll
the
hear
private
continued
company
callouts on
is
the
also
countdown net as
competing
we
with
get close
each
to
other,
liftoff. And
they
finally,
will launch
easy
as
to
many
say,
as
range is go,
they can
weather is go.
uh,
So right now, Courtney, we're coming up on
rocket to the
T-minus 10
space,
minutes.
and the
One of the
space
things
debris
that you'll hear on
will
Dragon
get
flights that
so
we don't hear on
many,
other ones is the
and
abort call
the
out.
You're talking
resource.
about
You'll
Kessler
witness a
syndrome.
little bit on what goes on with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, John, great to hear
There
that
Sorry, what?
everything is going well. We're
Kessler
continuing
syndrome.
to track that
Yes, it's
Dragon
called
and Falcon
Kessler
9 are ready
syndrome.
for
The
launch.
idea that
Uh,
there's so
Indicator
much
they were to
debris
happen.
around
Dragon is
Earth's
fully
orbit
prepared to
that
initiate an abort.
yeah.
Upon liftoff, you'll be hearing number and letter
Look, before it
combinations
even gets
on
close
Dragon's
to being a problem, they're going
which
to
will mark
make a
different abort zones throughout the
a
flight.
space
The
flight
numbers that define the
regulation
stage
that
of
says
flight
that
and the letter as the abort
that
zone.
uh,
The first two
packages of a certain size launched into orbit must be retrievable,
yeah.
Yes.
something along those
As,
lines.
as far
Yes.
The other thing they
After
are working on. Oh, go on.
yeah. After I think after the SpaceX and Bezos and uh, the other one, the Virgin Airlines did the space travel, and then NASA NASA did that. They put they planning a regulation about uh what what kind of spaceship that can travel or not.
Mm-hmm. So
The
another.
other thing, the other thing is also our resources, because like well, the main thing
Thank you for the
for
stretcher, Dean.
space travel is fuel, right? So
Once we've got space elevators, the game is basically over.
So the other thing,
yes,
yeah. So the other thing to make note of, and someone in my chat actually said this in 2 words: space broom. The idea is to have a giant laser pointed at the sky, as space debris passes by it, it'll be slightly warmed up to the point where will change its orbit and eventually degrade and burn up in the atmosphere. So it'll destabilize the orbit. It's a really cool concept and idea. Takes a lot of power
Require
to
a ton of energy, though.
It would require a ton of energy, but they're already pointing lasers
T-minus
at,
8 minutes.
they already point lasers at GPS satellites in order to make sure they're in the precise, location that they need to be for station keeping. But yeah, I know Issa's trying some stuff out with like, collecting garbage with like a net or something like that. Then you also have Lockheed Martin that has an extended mission thing probe that literally will latch onto old satellites, like
Actually, I think it was Northrop
keep
Grumman.
them station keeping for
I think it was Northrop Grumman that has
Northrop Grumman. Oh my goodness, I should know this stuff. I am ashamed of myself because I know Grumman.
And we're coming up
now.
on T-minus 7 minutes, and at that point, they will do the engine chill of all 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the first stage.
But yeah.
And T-minus 7 minutes. Let's see if they got the chill. Call-out chill.
Stage 1 engine chill has begun.
All right, here we go.
Engine chill has begun.
Well, you've heard it.
They will do the same to the second stage. I'd say about half a minute before they actually before actual staging.
John. And that RP
And the next event that will happen is at about T-minus 4 minutes. Well, they'll do the strong arm retract. They'll open the clamp that's at the top, that's just below the trunk, and that whole structure that's that runs parallel to the rocket will angle back 2 degrees, and at the time of liftoff, it'll angle back another 43.
Will be that the stage 1 RP load is complete. Coming up now in about 15 seconds.
Stage 1
We'll
RP1
stand by
load
for that
complete.
call now.
They're all awake now.
Yeah, well, they're getting ready.
We have a complete fill of RP.
I don't know if there's a requirement, but if this isn't your first rodeo, it might be interesting to be sleeping while you're going like Mach 12.
Well, yeah,
I don't
that's the
know
whole
if you
thing.
would.
Like I said, Soichi on the way up, he's just like
Yeah,
the
whatever.
capsule. He's just like, this is just another rodeo. It's not. He actually did mention that compared to STS and to Soyuz, it was a lot smoother of a ride. In fact, all astronauts that have been, on Dragon so far have said that it's a lot smoother of a ride. Go figure. It's almost like
Well, I mean,
it's almost like
Aboard Dragon?
Soyuz is like 70s technology. Well, I mean, it's
Well-
updated, but same premise.
Well, actually, it made its first flight in '67, and on top of that, I saw one picture that was kind of funny. It's sort of like a meme that says, on one side, you have Soyuz. Soyuz is coach, and Dragon. Dragon's first class.
But here's the thing, too. Dragon's cheaper.
All right, John, some good
That
calls.
too.
It's like an
And that's probably why
overpriced
that's probably
coach.
why Rogozin decided to say, let's go ahead and send cosmonauts up on Dragon.
Well, yeah, that and when they finally decide to detach from the ISS, if they ever do, they probably won't. They'll be stuck with Soyuz. Lol. That trampoline is working out really well for NASA, though, I've got to admit. Shout out to the 2 people that got that reference.
Okay, they're getting ready to pull back the strong back. They're opening the clamps now as we speak.
It'll stay there all the way through liftoff, and then as Courtney mentioned, at liftoff,
There it goes. There
hydraulics
goes
will
the
then
clamp.
pull it down to about a 45-degree position above ground.
Here we go.
And that'll give us the final clearance. It's that strong back right now that is providing the liquids, the gas connections, the electrical connections.
And
This
pretty
is
soon
the
we'll be
big moment.
finishing liquid oxygen tanking, and then we'll start seeing venting of liquid oxygen through the umbilicals that are in the strong back.
We're hearing some of the venting of the vehicle as we are pressurizing and depressurizing at various steps. As we get ready, you'll see a burst of depressurization there on the second stage.
And there it is. Everything is just filled up with propellant, ready to go.
That's right, John. We're also anxiously awaiting the stage 1 liquid oxygen is complete on the first stage. You should hear that call coming up here shortly.
Ow.
You alright?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just had a pie fall on me. It's okay.
Oh.
The LOX load has completed. They just called that out.
And confirmation that the stage 1 LOX load is complete.
Right now, LOX is going to continue loading on
Rocket Man. That's the name of the movie.
Oh.
What movie?
Now the vehicle is on. Now the vehicle is on its own power. And the next event that'll happen is at T-minus 1 minute, they will go to startup, which basically means the vehicle's internal computers will have full control over the vehicle's critical functions and the remainder of the countdown. And at about T-minus 40 seconds, one final readiness check on the vehicle, the capsule, and her crew.
This is it. We've been waiting for this for quite
Exactly.
a while.
Indeed.
What, like half a month?
2 minutes.
Stage 2 locks load complete.
And we're coming. The locks load has. I was wrong about locks load complete. Now they're complete. Now they should be. Now they should be starting to get ready to vent.
We have fuel on both the first and second stages, and both stages are filled with liquid.
Loud venting.
Filled with liquid oxygen.
Alerting them to loud venting pending.
Dragon is also in auto idle. The flight computers on board Dragon maintaining their calculations, standing by
And also
for the
terminal count. They should be already in terminal count.
That next call out will be that Dragon is in countdown. Standing by now for that call.
Here it comes.
All right.
T-minus 1 minute.
Here we go, baby.
Just
There's the
seconds
call. The
left.
vehicle is in startup.
All right, the final minute before
Well,
launch.
this is it.
Just 47 seconds to go.
No
Everything
turning
ready
back
for
now.
nighttime launch today.
Go for launch.
Well, I think they can turn back up until 10 seconds.
The vehicle,
Ground teams are ready,
capsule, and
Crew-3
crew
is
are
ready
all
for
ready for
liftoff.
launch. T-minus
Heading
30
for that
seconds.
instantaneous launch window. Seconds to lift off.
T-minus 20 seconds.
T-minus 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
10, 9, 8,
9,
7,
8,
6,
7,
5,
6,
4,
5,
3,
4,
2,
3,
1,
2,
0.
1. Ignition. And
Liftoff.
liftoff.
There we
Falcon 9
go.
carrying
Oh, that flare.
Dragon Endurance headed to the International Space Station, and the vehicle has cleared the tower. It's going to be pitching down range right now to put it above water in the event of an abort scenario, as well as to lighten the loads on the vehicle as it goes through the atmosphere. At about the T plus 55 seconds, they will start throttling the engines down, bringing the throttles into the bucket, reducing the engines, reducing the vehicle stresses on the vehicle as it goes through the area of maximum dynamic pressure, or max Q.
On the way to the International Space Station.
Power and
They
telemetry
just
nominal.
put it in the bucket, according to their telemetry.
And we're into the
Having a little difficulty with the video feed right now.
Whoa.
Yeah, I noticed. There it goes. It's starting
Oh,
to clear
there
up
we go.
finally.
Yep.
We should
This
be
is
hitting
just-
max Q. We're about to hit. They just hit Mach 1, and they're about to enter max Q.
Stage 1 throttle.
Max Q. They are going through they're going through the densest areas of the atmosphere, and in a little bit they're going to throttle all 9 Merlin 1D engines up to full throttle.
Bravo call is for the second stage abort mode on the first stage. That is going to take them through the first stage burning just before the second stage activates off the coast of North Carolina.
We're about a minute away from the main engine
The
cutoff.
next milestone coming up shortly will be MVAC chill underway.
And you'll notice a couple of little hoses
MVAC chill
when you
underway.
get to see the inside. There goes the MVAC chill call. You'll see a couple of lines that separate from the first from the second stage when they stage,
more than 40 seconds.
and those are outlets to the outside so they can do MVAC chill.
2 minutes 36 seconds. The stages will separate. Then the second stage will ignite, carrying Dragon on its
Little
way
under
into
30
low
seconds
Earth
left in the
orbit.
burn.
All right. One thing to also look forward to is to see what their
Stage 1
zero
throttle
G indicator is as well. That's just
Right,
the
of course.
Down at
yeah.
3.5 seconds.
You always have some small little plushie for that.
10 seconds left in the burn.
Getting ready for Miko.
Here's the interior of the MVAC nozzle. They should have Miko right about now.
Miko.
They just called Miko.
Stage separation.
There go the stages.
Copy. 2 Alpha.
Interior of the left, first stage on the left. Exterior of the second stage on the right. There goes the green flash. And the ignition of the MVAC engine. And there goes
MVAC,
the
To the International Space Station.
and the grid fins are deploying so then they can steer once they're in the atmosphere. It's going to continue going up for a little while until it hits an apogee of anywhere between 125 to 150 kilometers. And they just passed the Kármán line, which is the internationally recognized border to space. Had there been a fairing on there, it would have been jettisoned by now.
With that red color we like to see, indicating everything is proceeding well.
And bear note that that this glow on the second stage nozzle, which is made of niobium, is perfectly normal. That is radiatively cooling. Bennett, how are you doing? Thank you for coming. Bennett on my channel.
Dragon SpaceX trajectory nominal.
Trajectory is nominal on the second stage.
That just means the Bermuda ground station has the signals from the second stage of
And
Dragon
this first stage that has been used on this mission, it is a flight-proven vehicle. This is its third flight.
We are coasting to apogee, beginning a slow 180-degree pitch, so that when the vehicle comes back through the atmosphere, the engines are pointed down towards the drone ship. When we do the relight, relight for the entry burn will come at T plus 7 minutes and 30 seconds, 3 minutes from now. Currently, the first stage about 166 kilometers up, continuing to coast to apogee for another brief period.
Yep, that is absolutely true.
Meanwhile, that second stage still propelling the Crew-3
That's something you can
astronauts
only
up
say
the
for
eastern
SpaceX
seaboard,
rockets.
and it will continue to fire. That's about a 6-minute burn to deliver
I find
the
it funny
astronauts
that
into
all
orbit.
of this is so
Trajectory nominal.
machine accurate and minutely automated
And a good call out
that
from the ground team.
basically up until they reach orbit, the only human interaction they require is just watching the numbers to make sure everything is going as expected.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
It's amazing. Like, this is what is it? When did SpaceX start? 20 years ago or something? This is what happens when you have like when you start like with how many failures SpaceX has had. They've narrowed it down to just a precise science.
They almost bankrupted themselves. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's been science the whole time.
Oh yeah,
True.
definitely.
But
5 minutes and 30 seconds into
they
flight
have
today,
it down to
everything
just
is still proceeding
fine, okay. Well, this is looking good. Check, 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 check.
And Courtney, right now on the second stage, it's such a.
I mean, you went from a company that couldn't even get like a second stage to go, or what was that? Was that Falcon 1 who had the second? Yeah, they had a second stage literally bonking on itself, and now they're like, okay, push out the second stage. Let's go. Like this puppy.
Everything is still looking good on that second stage. The next milestone on the second stage will be SECO. And we're getting our views now from inside of Endurance, our first views of the crew on their way to
Even the way they're sitting reminds me of Star Trek a little bit. Kind of the orders and
the slightly elevated chairs.
And we're
yeah.
coming up on 2 minutes left in the second stage burn.
Of the first stage.
I kind of wish they showed us the cabin while they were under heavier G-forces.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get to see some of the stuff from entry as well as all the way down to touchdown. Yep, there's the one from the first stage on the left. We should be seeing the entry burn starting shortly. First, the center engine will start, and then 2 additional engines, numbers 1 and 5, that flank it will also light to help slow it down. This happens at about the 50-kilometer level, and it will slow the vehicle down from about 8,000 kilometers an hour to anywhere between 4,500 to 5,000 kilometers an hour, and then the atmosphere will do the rest shortly thereafter.
At 7 minutes and 30 seconds will be entry burn start.
Here it comes.
Waiting for the call out
Mm-hmm.
from SpaceX Propulsion
We're inside of 10
responsible
seconds for the
engineer.
start of that burn.
The 3 Merlin 1D engines have lit to begin slowing down the first stage.
Should be seeing it momentarily.
Entering the Earth's
Stage 2
atmosphere.
There it
There
goes.
it goes. Yep, there we
the
go.
burn.
Entry burn is in start.
And then as soon as
Re-entry
you're
burn.
getting close to the vehicle, you'll see those.
First
If we
stage
can
1
get
entry
any
burn
light on that, we
startup.
may
We've
see
lit
the
center engine.
grid fin
Side
start to
engines,
turn.
3 engines running. This is a 27-second
And
burn.
hopefully, if everything works out, we should be able to see it landing on the drone ship. They have recently updated their communications, and Usually on the drone ship, it
Speed
used to
up.
be very finicky.
And there goes the entry burn. It has been shut down. About another minute and a half, and they'll light only the center engine to bring it down onto the drone ship. And we're coming up on Seco 1, which will happen in about 15 seconds or so.
60% of the time, it works all the time. It lands all the time.
Terminal guidance.
If they haven't called Shannon already, they'll do it shortly.
Copy Shannon.
There's that
Right there.
Shannon.
They just called
Stage
it.
one is transonic.
Stage 1 just went below the speed of went below Mach 1.
Stage 1
Hopefully we should be seeing that
decelerating as we
before too
prepare
long.
for entry burn. But our attention is right now looking at stage 2 as we get ready for
Second
shutdown.
engine's about to cut off. We have Seco 1, and hopefully we'll get to see landing of the first stage on the drone ship. There's
There it
the landing
goes.
burn.
There we go. Landing burn. Come on, switch over to drone ship. Switch over to drone ship.
Nominal orbit insertion.
Oh, I still remember the first
They
time
called
they.
nominal orbital insertion on the second stage and Dragon.
Have been delivered into orbit.
There's the deck of the drone ship.
Look at that. Look at that beautiful. Okay, as it goes, come on, come on, come on.
Do it.
Stabilize. Keep the video. Keep the video. Keep the video.
It's too bright.
And they cut it off. Every
Cut it off. I
time.
think it might have been just
No, it's not. It's so what happens usually is the barge.
Stage one landing.
They have like a whole fleet out there over by the barge, and as it's landing, they have a point-to-point antenna, and as the barge moves up and down and like reverberates because the whole rocket is landing on it, they start to lose communication with it, and so it always happens up until the barge finally stabilizes and they're able to show it. They have.
It sounds like it sounded like they actually got the first stage landed properly.
The crew now coasting in low Earth orbit, still attached to that second stage.
So, just a little
There's
hypothetical.
There's our zero G indicator on the right.
What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it?
Turtle.
Looks like a
Turtle
or a Kepler.
Courtney right now, the Falcon 9.
Dang it, they need to put a
here's a little
Fumo up there.
hypothetical
Right
question
now.
for you guys.
When it's time,
If the
Dragon
first
will command
stage didn't
separation
land
from the
correctly,
Falcon 9
like it
second
crashed or something, do you think that they would withhold that information from the astronauts just to not freak them out? Or
No,
anything?
no.
Idle the second
See,
stage.
that's
It's
the
already
thing
done its
about
job.
yeah.
The cold gas
The
thrusters,
booster,
By the-
like retrieval of the booster, is always secondary to the safety of the astronauts. If it doesn't go down correctly, oh well. NASA might look into it. I think they had a booster, or NASA was using a booster, and that actually happened to where it had a problem, and it didn't land on the drone ship. The other neat thing about the booster
There's the
landing.
interior of the trunk.
Oh, okay. I'll get into that in a sec.
drone ship as we get ready for Dragon separation.
All right, but anyways, as I was saying, how long until Dragon separation?
Coming just
Oh.
10 seconds from now.
Okay.
Stand by for that call.
I'll get into what I was going to say in a sec.
Sometimes there'll be stuff in here too, because this is the unpressurized dip.
Yep. Just waiting on
We are
that.
standing by.
Standing by.
There
Oh,
it is.
there we go.
Separation from the third stage, second stage,
Dragon
rather.
separation confirmed.
Woo! There we go.
And the next major event will be the opening of the nose cone. It'll,
Dragon.
like they said earlier, it'll take about 4
Welcome to
minutes to
orbit.
complete.
Hope you enjoyed the ride from F9. Dragon will take you from here. Safe travels. Stand by for words from LD.
And Endurance,
Let's
LD
hear what
here.
they have to say.
On behalf of the SpaceX launch and recovery teams, it was a pleasure to be part of this mission with you. Enjoy your holidays amongst the stars. We'll be waving as you fly by. Cheers.
Wow.
Well, there they are. They're in orbit now.
In orbit on their way to the International Space
There's the
Station.
zero G indicator.
Oh, it is a turtle. Going back to what I was saying about the booster landing.
And some final words from the crew as well.
Oh, let's listen to these final words.
There they are, our Crew-3 astronauts. Now in orbit. That next milestone will be the deployment of the nose cone. That'll be about a 5-minute process.
Are we gonna be able to watch him connect and get on the ISS?
And we'll prepare.
That won't happen until sometime tomorrow.
Ah.
I thought it was scheduled for the 12th. I could be wrong though.
It looks so easy.
Oh, you could be right,
We
yeah.
had the benefit of watching the,
By the way,
launch
fun
team,
fact,
the spacecraft team, the
I
NASA
think
team,
the fastest they've gotten to the International Space Station was Soyuz in like 6 hours. Or no, 3
It was less
hours, I
than that.
think. Yeah, it was 3
Yeah.
hours. They literally
They did
waited
about
till it
one
was
and a half
overhead.
orbits.
Yeah, they literally waited till it was like overhead. Then they're like, okay, let's go.
Nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts.
All right, so yeah, I'm sorry. This is one thing I wanted to mention about the booster is up until like the last few seconds of landing, the booster will be aimed away from either the drone ship or land. It happened a couple of times, more than a couple of times, but where the rocket didn't have enough propellant or something else was happening, and it basically went into a terminal or a terminal impact with the ocean instead. And that's one of the cool things. It's like, for safety reasons, you don't want it hitting your barge either. You don't want it to sink. But yeah, so.
Michelin specialist from that mission.
Whew, what a
That's one of the
mission!
reasons why they pack. That's why they pack so much propellant in there, to make sure that they have the margin of error that they need. And also sometimes they run out of the. Sometimes some of them where they had issues with the grid fins, and others they ran out of. They may have had issues with the cold nitrogen gas thrusters.
It was one of the most impressive launches I have seen.
And that rumble was probably one of the loudest I've heard. I don't know how to explain that.
I don't either. I mean,
They
it
must
seemed
be
louder to me
outside.
than most launches, and it was really rattling this whole setup where we are here.
Just a boom, and then we saw the zero-G indicator.
Yep.
A turtle.
A turtle, of course, because there's turtles on board.
2 turtles on board, and of
What?
course they had to convince the other 2 astronauts to.
Wait, really?
Right. I
apparently
didn't
they
Yeah,
did.
really?
How
Like I said,
what
live
that arm
specimens.
but I guess it was the
It
turtles.
was the turtles. All right, we're joined now by
Who
Frank
doesn't
Savina. He's the
love a
program
turtle?
manager
So
for the International
Mallory,
I wonder what
let
they're gonna
Data know that
use
one of her
them-
cousins
use them
is
for
on board.
testing for.
Yes, indeed, beautiful launch. We
You think they sedate the
Actually, I'll
test
do it.
animals for launch?
No, they don't.
Crew-Dragon, after Thomas that,
Well, depending on the ones, but I don't think they usually do. Like, whatevs. Get them up there. I mean, some of these the animals are hard to sedate, like spiders. Very hard.
Yeah, we're gonna put
Also,
Yeah, but spiders don't weigh very much, and they're not
True,
very
too.
strong.
And literally just days later, seeing off one of your.
that would actually be, you know what? Come to think about it, that would be terrifying if they actually accidentally got out of their enclosure.
Back to back, and we will
Oh,
also have
God.
Samantha Cristoforetti that will fly in April next
Data was
year.
all-
So for
oh.
the first time, we will have for 1.5 years permanent.
Data was watching the mission? Oh, poggers.
Station. So it also shows that
Hey,
that's
yo.
really stepping up to the game. We are more and more engaged in the ISS, but also in the lunar program with our NASA colleagues in the Gateway.
So by about
We
the
will have
20-minute
three
mark, they
astronauts
should
flying
have
to the
everything
Gateway,
open up,
before
and
the
I
end
think
of
they're
this
going to end
decade.
they're
We
going
are
to end their
doing a new
coverage right
astronaut
around that
selection,
time,
so
and
explorations
I
will
think
be
I will
also
be ending
taking off
stream
in
right
Europe.
around that time as
And
well.
how did you enjoy the launch?
Mhm.
Were you watching from the 5th floor of the operations support building?
No, I was actually in the LCC.
Depending on how much more we have to
so,
say, I might
I
end
was
my
able to
stream
go outside
about then
and,
too.
Go on the
Okay.
staircase on the outside.
Because I
on the
actually have a few things to
fifth
do
floor
here
there,
before
or
I,
something like that.
because
It's,
I'm actually going to
really
also
amazing.
cover the
Like you
Electron
said,
launch in
you
about
see
9
the-
o'clock p.m.
the light and then the sound,
Pacific
and
time.
you're really on the stairs there,
Oh,
you
I
feel
would.
the rumbling, so it's,
I don't have work tomorrow.
Now, you two are familiar with each other, Shannon Walker
Yes.
and Frank DeVito.
Yep.
Explain that.
Well,
You know what? I think I might.
comes
You know
out
what? Do you
as,
mind if I join you, Kat?
American astronauts.
Not at all.
Astronauts, and so we actually go.
I think I might be down for that. I probably am gonna need to grab another energy drink, but you know I'd be down for that.
I hear you there.
Energy drinks, by the way. How?
What kind of energy drink do you go for?
So tell me.
I don't know really anything that has energy in it. To be honest, I don't care what it is as long as it doesn't taste like piss water.
Yes, I talked a couple of times with him. Not as much
I've been
as
drinking
I
these
would
things
have
called
wanted, but, again, the launch was a
Science.
little bit delayed, and I had to be back in
Mhm.
Europe.
What?
Science?
Thomas, but,
Yeah, it's called
I think
Science.
he's very motivated.
Science?
I don't know how much.
First flight,
I don't know how much
so the
caffeine is in
times,
it. I don't think there is a
of
whole
course,
lot
also a little bit
because
curious what's
I
going
don't
to happen,
feel
because,
caffeinated
it's
when I drink
different,
it.
the
But
second flight and the first flight is totally different.
it's got
At least for me, it's
200%
for
your
us,
daily value
to
of
go
B,
into the unknown, and it's
B3
always a little
vitamins,
bit scary
B6
to go
vitamins,
into
and
the
B12
unknown.
vitamins.
You know that
Oof.
the people expect a
Oh,
lot of you. Matthias has a whole science program.
I,
A lot
I
of Bravo.
can't.
It's also for the benefit of
Can't
NASA,
you
and
just
of course,
can't
yes,
believe
God
it?
wants to perform to the
It's
best of his abilities, and
unbelievable.
of course, that also brings
I also
great
feel
No
really
need to
good
be
after I drink
rated,
it.
huh?
that he was excellent in training, and I'm sure that he will do a great mission as well.
He's a program manager for the
I
International
was just
Space
saying, no need to
Station, Frank
be
DeVito.
rated because
Thanks
there's
for
plenty
joining
of
us in
B
the
in there
post-launch
already.
interview. We really appreciate it, and congratulations.
You leave
Thank
it.
you very much.
All right, let's send it over to Marie Lewis at the Operations and Support Building with another guest.
Wait, am I after I saw the astronaut suit, am I the only one the longer I see the astronaut suit
Oh, it was
that
fantastic, Marie.
it
We had a
has
beautiful evening for launch. You know, it's like I
re-
tell folks, don't take
resemblance with
pictures,
you
experience
know
it. And it was another
Gundam
great
pilot
experience seeing those four guys take off
astronaut suit.
into space on top of that Falcon
I
9
have
on
not
that
watched a
Dragon.
Gundam,
How amazing.
so
What a
hold
great
on.
partnership we
Oh,
have with
all right.
SpaceX to enable that. I couldn't be
personally,
more
I'm more
proud
of a
of our
Mech Warrior
team
fan
and what we've
myself.
accomplished.
Kind of does look like a Gundam suit.
Is it right?
People who have been to space. Matthias was number 600. Kayla Barron is number 601. What do you think about the trajectory that we're on?
And another note, another item of
Well,
note,
it's absolutely
this is
outstanding. You know, what
very,
we want to do
very
is enable
close
a
to my
commercial
first
economy in low
anniversary,
Earth
which
orbit
happened
so
to
that we
cover
can
Crew
focus on
1,
that
and I
really
did that
hard job
solo.
of
I
exploring
only had
beyond
maybe
our
one or
home
two
planet,
people
going to
watching,
the moon to learn what we
and
need,
we
going to
actually
the
peaked
moon
at
in a
11
sustainable
tonight
way so that we can learn
on
what we
my
need to
channel
go
alone.
to Mars
Nice.
eventually,
Ooh.
establishing that presence in our
So I'd like
solar
to say
system
to everybody
beyond
who's
our home
here,
planet. And to
thank
do
you so
that,
much for
we
being
want to
here. I
commercialize low
appreciate
Earth
it. This
orbit.
was,
And
I
as
never
many
thought
folks
this
as
could
we
actually
can
come as,
go into space.
this is
And
one of the better ones I've had
that's
thus
what we're
far.
enabling right now.
And another one
I
was
think
the
it's an
launch of
amazing
Nauka.
time
That was
for
a pretty
America's
good
space
one too.
program. We are definitely at an inflection
I'm
point
glad
on
I
how
could
we are
be here for it.
commercializing space.
And how about
I'm
the
glad to
future
have
of
you here
the
for it.
International Space
Yeah, it was
Station in particular?
very fun.
I
Thanks
know that's near
for
and dear to you because you
allowing
I mean, on the four different space
allowing
shuttles, right? So you're one of the
me
first
and
people to cross the
everyone
threshold
else to
into the
come and
space
join.
station.
You know, I
Mm-hmm.
can't
Okay.
believe it's been,
Same with
almost
me.
23 years since that first mission.
I
that
think
we've
we're
had
gonna. I think I'm
crews
just gonna
on
go ahead and
orbit
head back to
since
the chat
2000.
window
I mean,
real quick because
anybody that is
because I think
21
we're pretty
years
much
old or younger
pretty much
in the
done right
world has
now.
never
They
known
have
a time that there weren't humans
pretty
living
much
in
everything
space.
else right now is
So,
automated.
Yeah, pretty
and,
much.
I think it's
Well, I mean, it
it's
was
just
automated
it's so darn
T minus 10
outstanding.
Oh yeah,
seconds.
from the get go, yeah.
Finally, to the NASA and SpaceX
So
teams that have
anyway,
gotten us here today
on that
for
note,
this regular cadence of
let me
missions,
find
and
someone I
also to
can
our
raid real
international
quick.
partners.
And
Well, first off, I want to say thank you. Thank you for all your dedication and hard
let's
work. You know,
see.
this is not an easy
Are we
job.
gonna try to do
It's
a
a challenge to safely get humans to and from low
what's
Earth
it?
orbit.
Are we gonna try to do
The
like a
partnerships that we have with our international
a
partners,
double raid
with our
going or a
commercial
quadruple
crew
raid or
partners,
quintuple
you know,
raid going?
it has enabled
I'm totally
this
down
space
for that.
economy that we have right now.
I don't have any
Right now,
viewers, so
we're
I
you know
wouldn't
what?
be
Let's
I wouldn't be
Same
contributing
with
to
me.
the
I
raid.
don't have any
again,
viewers.
A raid is a raid. It
Um,
helps with the
is to get back to the
algorithm.
moon in a sustainable way.
yeah, that's
It's
true.
All
absolutely
hail
amazing.
the
So,
algorithm.
thank you.
Algorithm. Here, send me a link. All right, we're gonna go raid them. We will probably be back with Cat later. So okay, I have to make a small announcement to my group as well. Guys, remember Saturday. Saturday, we are doing our 3 streams. Let's go. YOLO. We're gonna do the re-debut. Saturday re-debut. Get ready for that. All right, I'm gonna go back to Cat. Saturday re-debut. Yeah, thank you so much. Yes. All right, 1 sec /raid. All right. Just did that myself, and yeah, I will see you back then. All right, sounds good. Same. Oh gosh, that's gonna be 10 o'clock for me.